Welcome to the 49er and 49er FX European Championships. I'm your host, Peter Rush, and I'm joined here by our expert commentator, Andy Rice. It's a big day here in Helsinki. It's the second day of Gold Fleet racing, and today, Andy, it's all about trying to get into the top 10.
That's it. We've got 26 plus an extra team. We've got another Spanish team that's allowed into the fray today. So we've got 27 fighting it out for those final 10 places for 3 theatre style races tomorrow to decide who's going to win the medals at the European Championships.
Okay, well, racing starts in just a few minutes, but before we get to that, we're going to take a look at some of the highlights from yesterday.
But let's not forget that overall there are 53 women's teams here. There are 83 men's teams in the men's 49er that we'll be talking about later on. Most successful days ever, even by their high standards. 3 race wins for the New Zealanders. Blair Chute gets the kite down for the last of many, many times today before half of the rest of the fleet has even crossed the finish line.
Well, Andy, yesterday, Pete Burling from New Zealand, his crew Blair Chute, they had it all their own way. 3 wins, including a statement port tack start across the top of the fleet. They're at the top of our leaderboard. Can they do it again today?
No. I'm going to put it out there. I just don't think that you can repeat that kind of performance twice in a row. But I'd love to be proven wrong. But it's a little bit lighter today. I think it's going to be a bit more of everybody's kind of day. I think the stronger wins yesterday made it a little bit easier for them to stamp their authority. I think we're going to see more race winners today than we did yesterday.
All right, well, racing getting underway in just a couple of minutes. We'll go out to the race course now. We can see it is a different day from yesterday. Yesterday, conditions were in that sort of 13, 14, 15, maybe even up to 16 knots at times. Today, what do we have?
I would say it's more like 9 to 11 knots today, so maybe just about flat trapezing, but really looking for all the power they can get from their rigs today. Yesterday they were able to give away power. Today they're looking to hang on to every bit of power they can find from their rigs.
Well, another team that had a great day yesterday was Nathan Outeridge from Australia. Pete Burling, Nathan Outeridge, they maybe came into this event as the favorites based on their record. They went into yesterday's racing in 5th and 6th, respectively. And you can see both of them had a good day yesterday. They're sitting 1-2 right now. Nathan Outeridge and Ian Jensen, they had 3 finishes inside the top 5 yesterday.
Yeah, and Nathan was really, really happy with his performance. We wondered if he would be disappointed by comparing himself with the Kiwis, who were just outstanding. But no, he was extremely happy to keep all his results inside the top 5. And he will be looking to make inroads on the Kiwis today. He reckoned that maybe he would see Pete Burling attempt the port tack every time. But I just don't know about that. I don't think it's windy enough for that today.
He's maybe egging him on a bit there.
Yeah, it could be. He was hoping that Burling maybe was overhearing him. We've got about 1 minute to the start now. So you can see them lining up there. You can see how much softer it is. If you were watching yesterday, you can see that the boats are just bobbing around a little bit more gently than they were yesterday. And it's going to be a subtler game today. It's going to be more thinking, less brute force required.
And that being said, Andy, we heard from a lot of the sailors yesterday when they came off the water just how tricky it was out there. Plenty of holes and lots of shifts to play with yesterday as well.
Well, that's very true. It was a very physical and a very mental day yesterday. I think today is more a mental game. We've got 20 seconds to go, and we hope that the fleet will behave and stay behind the line and that we'll get away first time round. But already some of those boats are looking very high on the line. The Polish boat, number 52, most left of picture, looking quite high on the line. GBR 10 sailing away from us. Off they go. It is, we'll have to see if it's a clean start. It looked like some of them were very, very high on the line. And look, there in the middle of picture, you can't quite see it, but Pete Burling, I think, is attempting the port tack start. He's sailing underneath most of the starboard tackers, so he hasn't managed the Hollywood sail across the top of them in port tack, but he's still wanting to go out to the right-hand side and sail out to sea. It's a slightly different wind direction as well today, so that may have an effect on which side of the course pays. I fancy, without having spent too much time looking at that, I think I fancy the left, sailing inshore, such as these boats we're looking at now.
All right, well, leading the charge out to the left is the Polish boat, and we haven't heard full confirmation from the race committee on an all-clear start yet, but certainly it looks like the guys are good to go. And there is a split fleet, as we normally see in these boats off the start, Andy, a smaller group heading out to the right, larger group heading out to the left right now.
See how early they've tacked onto port. So even the boats that started on starboard, a lot of them have already tacked onto port. So they feel that they're in a left-hand phase and they want to take advantage of it and get out to the right-hand side before it shifts back again. That's the Polish boat, number 52. That's Tomasz Januszewski and Jacek Nowak. Did very well in Kiel Week recently.
And they come into the day sitting in 23rd place. They would have an awful lot of work to do to move themselves up into the top 10 today. But certainly they had a good start there, and they're leading the charge out to the left-hand side. They've just tacked now, coming back towards the middle of the course.
It's taking a while to get full boat speed going out of these tacks. You see they're crouching on the trapezes there. This is a lighter wind day, and you'll see some different people come to the fore. I think we'll still see the Kiwis are very strong, but I think some of them will be able to hold their own against the Kiwis. They're not going to run away with it with 3 race wins.
And pushing hard out to the right, that's Nick Asher from Great Britain. He's the one who's heading furthest out to the right-hand side of the course right now.
These guys here, they're the Paz brothers. They're the ones that are being given the golden ticket back in here today. They were in Silver Fleet yesterday, but they're allowed to compete today as the 27th boat, and they're taking full advantage of that. Anton Paz is an Olympic champion from 2008 in the Tornado class in the catamaran, so he's made the switch to the 49er some years ago. Hasn't reached the same dizzy heights that he managed to in the Tornado, but he's still working hard at it. Brazilians just ducking and bearing away behind another boat, and you can see in the far distance could be another fleet, actually, another Brazilian boat. If that's the Brazilian boat I'm thinking of, it's Dante Bianchi, and I was just asking Dante Bianchi about the World Cup and about Brazil in the World Cup. In fact, I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago in Kiel Week, and I asked him what his hopes and dreams were for Brazil in the World Cup, and he said, "I hope they lose." And I couldn't quite believe what I was hearing.
Well, he got his wish then, didn't he?
He sure did.
Andy, we should also just update you. If you're watching the racing on the tracking, you'll notice that you've got a boat GBR 98, and that's Dave Evans and Ed Powys. They had an issue with their mast maybe about 10 or 15 minutes before the start. They actually came in, changed the rig. They have started now, but obviously they're about 3 or 4 minutes behind the rest of the fleet.
Oh, so they have crossed the line, but
crossed the start line, but they're
right.
So a good distance behind.
So they hoisted the mainsail this morning, and the track was broken. And so the track that holds the sail onto the back of the mast is glued on. Now, either the track itself had cracked or the glue had given way. So I'm guessing they must have put a spare rig on, and they managed to get on the water at least. But this race is not going to go well for them. I can't see them pulling back 3 or 4 minutes in this kind of breeze. GBR4, Dylan Fletcher, Alan Sign sailing across the middle of our picture. They, for a brief moment yesterday, were leading overall, but they slipped away a little bit towards the end of the day. They're still in 3rd overall. They had scores of 3, 9, and 8 yesterday. Not quite able to take on the Antipodean teams that are in 1st and 2nd. But they're slightly lighter than the Antipodean teams and very good in these kind of conditions. So maybe that British team, GBR4, will be able to make some kind of inroads into the top 2.
And right now it's another team from GBR who's really looking strong. And that's the one led by Nick Asher. And they're in the middle of the middle of the fleet, mid-pack, but they got their nose out, and I think they're going to look quite good going around the top mark here.
In these kind of conditions in a 470, Nick Asher was legendary. He's a double 470 world champion. Amazingly, never got to go to the Olympics for Great Britain in the 470. Not many people have won one world championship in the 470, let alone two. But he made the switch. He just couldn't keep his weight down for the 470. He had health issues. He's since put on weight, and his health issues have gone away. And he's loving sailing the 49er. But again, like Anton Paz, yet to reach the top of the fleet in the 49er. It's not an easy switch for everybody. These kind of conditions, though, you would expect Nick Asher to do well because he's got a great feel for a boat when you're looking to get every bit of power out of it. And you can see they're just about stretched, but they're slightly higher on their trapezes. Just saw somebody drop down on their trapeze there, so that they're just about on full power, but not quite. Irish, or either Irish or Italian going across our picture there. I think maybe it was Italian. Just tacking up towards the top mark, the orange windward mark.
Well, we will have our mark rounding at the top mark in just a couple of minutes. This is the first leg of what is to be 3 races in the Gold Fleet in the 49er class here at the European Championships in Helsinki. And we have good conditions for racing today. Not quite as spectacular as what we've had over the last couple of days. Wind more in the 10 knot range, maybe just building. And it is forecast to be windier later this afternoon, Andy.
Yeah, for the ladies this afternoon, I shouldn't say that, should I? I should say for the lighter weight crews in the FX, most of whom are women, they are expected to have stronger breeze, so we're really looking forward to that. I just saw GBR10 tacking up. That is John Pink and Stu Bithell from Great Britain. Stu Bithell won a silver medal in the 470 two years ago at London 2012. He's now crewing at the front of John Pink's 49er. But it looks like there's another GBR team going to go around in first place, and that is the double 470 world champion Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett. And for them, this is a fantastic race so far. These guys are really going to struggle to make it into the final top 10, so they are probably racing only for glory. But having said that, 20th at the moment overall, a first place in this race could really launch them up the rankings. Now, that looks like...
I think it's the Austrians that are in behind them.
The Austrians, okay. So that would be Nico Resch, would it? Nico Delacarth and Nico Resch?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, currently in 7th overall. Italy 23 going round. Another Italian boat, 969. Dylan Fletcher, Alan Sign in 3rd overall, GBR 4, followed by the French, France 14. Australia 5, Nathan Outridge. Eric Heil, Germany 12.
And well back and deep in the fleet, Andy, is Peter Burling.
Yeah, no sign of him so far. So you got any ideas about where he might be, Peter?
Well, he's in a big pack that's maybe mid-fleet or maybe even the sort of the back third of the fleet. So he's got a lot of work to do. Certainly not having it all his own way today as he did yesterday. But we did see him sail up through the fleet. That was in the first race yesterday. He had to come a long way from behind. And in fact, I think they ended up doing penalty turns in the first race, didn't they, right after the start?
That's right. And to be able to do a 360 turn right off the start, come back and sail all the way through the fleet and win that race was phenomenal. I just think in these kind of conditions, that's really not going to happen. And I hate to say it, Peter, I don't like to say I was right, but I think that the left felt to me like the way to go, sail inshore. We saw them do the port tack start, sail off out to the right-hand side out to sea, and it doesn't seem to have done the Kiwis any favours.
Well, it doesn't, and certainly that port tack start that they had to do this time, it was behind the fleet, not in front of the fleet, so they're already slightly on the back foot off the starting line. But we'll see. They're kind of mid-fleet right now, and I'm sure we'll see Pete Burling and Blair Tuke working to pick off the places one at a time as they work their way back up.
So first time down on a 3-lap race. So yesterday we saw some 4-lap races. David Campbell-James, the race officer, he's aiming for that target time of around 30 minutes and reckons it's going to be about 10 minutes a lap.
Well, we've got a big cross coming up with our leaders here. And in fact, Nick Asher, I think he's conceded with an early jibe there. And so I think our leaders now would be the Austrian boat, Andy.
That would be Austria 84, Nico Delacarth and Nico Resch. Not been huge performers in recent years, but I think they were second in the world some years ago. I think maybe it was 2007 in Cascais, Portugal. So one of the older teams in the fleet, obviously still able to do very well. They were fourth in the last Olympic Games, agonizingly close to getting a bronze medal in London 2012.
Well, and they come into today's racing sitting in 7th place, so they've certainly haven't had a bad regatta by any stretch of the imagination.
No, and I think these kind of conditions will probably suit them very nicely. But I really want Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett to do well, being the Brit that I am. And Nick Asher, such a talent in the 470. I'd like to see him translate that into the 49er. They were one of the boats, unfortunately, ran aground a few days ago here in Helsinki on one of the other race courses. We got 3 other race courses here, and let's remember that outside of the Gold Fleet racing that we're watching, there are other fleets also competing in silver and bronze fleets. So it's not just about these guys here. That's who we're focused on. But on some of the other courses, there are some nasty rocks around, and it came up and bit Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett on the centerboard.
Well, we're coming up to the leeward gate for the first time. It's a 3-lap race today, and it does look like it's going to be our Austrian team that leads around. Nick Asher's going to be very close behind in 2nd place.
That was a very good gain for the Austrians there, moving up from 2nd to leading and going inshore. That's what I fancy. I think going inshore is going to be the safer way to go up this race course. GBR going around the right-hand gate, going out to sea. Looks like an Italian boat going round to the left. I think that will be Giuseppe Angelello, Italy 23.
Italy 23.
And, oh, that could be Jacopo Plazzi, actually, Italy 23. And who else have we got in the top few here?
Well, we've got Nathan Outeridge is coming around. I think he's in about 4th or 5th place.
So good going for him. These are important points for Nathan Outeridge and Ian Jensen to make on Pete Burling and Blair Tuke. Still yet to see much of Pete Burling and Blair Tuke in this race.
And Dylan Fletcher is right up there as well.
Poland 52, Thomas Janosewski and Jacek Novak jibing. Some way back in the fleet. Looking pretty light there. And that's the gap between the leader and some of the tail enders at this stage. There's a Danish boat there. I wonder which Danish boat we're looking at. We're just seeing them jibe. And that is Jonas Warrer, the 2008 Olympic champion, almost at the back of the fleet. Having a horrible time in this race at the moment, being chased by the Polish number 52. The Austrians sailing away nicely upwind, just being crossed behind there by Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne. Must be up in the top 5 or 6, are they? Have you seen where they are overall?
They're around 7th. Came into the day in 7th place.
Okay. So the Austrians look like they're flat wiring there. They got some nice breeze there. Sailing back across into the middle of the course. They went round the left-hand gate mark, sailed inshore, and they got really, really nice breeze there.
And I can tell you, Andy, the series leaders, Peter Burling, they've just rounded the mark now. So they are a long way back and fairly deep into this fleet.
So it makes me wonder, even after just this first lap of this race, the overall standings, if you were to stop this race now, I wonder already if Australia's Nathan Outeridge and Ian Jensen would normally be in the lead. It seemed like such a healthy lead going into today, but in today's kind of racing and this lighter kind of breeze, that 8-point advantage could slip away very, very quickly. Very smooth tack there. Beautifully powered up going out of the tack there for the Polish. But a long way back on the leaders. That's the leader sailing away from us there, the Austrian boat. Manu Dien, Stefan Christodis, overnight leaders going into yesterday. They wore the yellow jersey. They've got no coloured jersey on today because they slipped down a big snake yesterday from 1st to 6th overall. Sailing up the left-hand side of the track in good breeze. Austrians with a pretty nice lead here at the moment. How do you think the boats that went further out to sea are getting on there, Rushy? Because it was GBR 114, it was Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett decided to go round the right-hand mark and go out to sea.
Well, I think we're going to see the proof will be in the pudding, and that'll come in just a moment or two. As they've tacked, they're coming back into the middle of the course now, and we should have a cross with the leaders in a moment.
And I think we just saw that, and I think we saw that Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett have yielded further distance to the Austrians. So the Austrians were right to go inshore. They were right to go left. Looks very soft there for Australia 66. That's Will Phillips and Fang Warren.
There's a lot of holes on this racetrack right now, Andy, and we saw that when we were walking in this morning, that the wind just hasn't really completely filled into the bay here yet.
But you look at that Austrian boat sailing away from us, and they've been fully stretched all the way up this leg. They just seem to be in their own personal breeze, and I can't help thinking they're going to be even further ahead by the time they get to the windward mark for the second time. You can see just how patchy that breeze is. You can see the lighter coloured water in the distance. It does look good on the left. Looking at these boats sailing up on the left, I don't know if that's the same Australians we were looking at just now, but if it is, they seem to have picked up a lot more breeze on that left-hand side.
Yeah, I think that might end up being Nathan Outeridge.
In which case, I wonder if they've made some good gains inshore.
I think they're still solidly in the top 5, but I don't know that they've been able to make any gains on our race leaders, the Austrians.
Well, the Austrians had a slim lead over GBR 114, who went out right. That was Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett. We're just about at the halfway mark of this race now, coming up to the top mark for the second time. It's a 3-lapper. This is race 4 of the Gold Fleet Finals. We had 3 races yesterday, and all 3 of those were won by Pete Burling and Blair Tuke. They absolutely dominated in the 14 to 16 knot winds that we had yesterday. But in these lighter breezes, I said it could be anybody's game, and it does look like it's going to be a more open kind of play today. You can see the German boat sailing across the left, and also the Austrian leaders, Austria 84, just in left of picture. And there we see the New Zealand one, Pete Burling and Blair Tuke. Hard to say from this picture just how far behind they are, but there is some distance behind. Those spinnakers that we see, don't be confused by them. That's another fleet that we're looking at there. The boat that we're interested in has just gone out of picture on the right-hand side. It's the Austrians, Austria 84. That's Australia 20 by the look of it. That's Steve Thomas and Sam Phillips. Sam Phillips, he's got his brother out here, Will Phillips. They used to sail together, but they felt they were too heavy sailing together, so they split up. It wasn't they fell out. It's just the boat wasn't big enough to carry both of them at the same time.
Well, there's a big mark rounding coming up here, and Andy, for the Australians, they've been trying to make that ley line from a long way out, and I don't know if they're going to make it around the mark or need to do a double tack. It's going to be really close, but I think they may just be able to squeeze around.
It looks like the Austrians are on their final approach to this top mark second time, and they are. So the Austrians have an even bigger lead as their spinnaker goes up, and they go into a jibe set, immediately sailing back out to sea from where they've just come. Purple Jenica's up and set nicely. Who's going round in second? It looks like it could be an Italian boat. Could that be Jacopo Plazzi?
It is indeed, yes.
And immediately jibe set again. So clearly the leaders, with no other traffic around, they fancy the right-hand side. They want to go out to sea. They've obviously seen some good breeze out there. The only reason why you do that is if you reckon the best gust is to be found further out on the right-hand side. But it's quite a high angle both of those first 2 boats have done out of the top mark. So they must really like what they see on that right-hand side. Third boat round also does the same. Third boat round is GBR 114. They were leading very briefly down the previous run. It's Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett managing to hold on to third place.
That'll be Nathan Outeridge right behind them.
Another blue Jenica, that's the Australians, the reigning Olympic champions in 4th place. A long, long way ahead of their main rivals at the moment, Pete Burling and Blair Tuke. Everyone going for the jibe set. The first boat that hasn't done that are the Germans and the SAP Black Jenica, just on left of picture. They've gone for the straight set. So let's see how the Germans get on going on inshore, because so far all the leaders are going out to sea on this second run down.
And that's Eric Hyland. He came into today in 5th place. He had a good day yesterday, very consistent sailing yesterday, a couple of 5ths and a 3rd place finish.
Yeah, very good. And recent winner of Kiel Week. He's won in Palma before. But he was third, in fact, at the European Championships this time last year in Denmark. I would say that's probably his best international score so far. So he'll be looking to get back on the podium here at least. And if he can get into the top two, that would be even better. But yeah, these guys from Germany sailing very consistently, and one of Germany's biggest medal hopes for Rio 2016.
Well, and he came into today just 5 points out of a second place position overall. So although he's back in fifth, he's very close to being on that podium.
This looks like the Austrians sailing towards us, Purple Jenica, and you get some sense of the lead that they have in this race at the moment. Seems to be getting better and better for them. And this is so often the case. You see one boat breaking away, everybody else upsetting each other, getting in each other's way. When you've got clear air ahead of you and you can put the boat exactly where you want to on the track and not being dictated to by other boats, sometimes things just get better and better. But I would say you're never secure in this kind of breeze. It is quite patchy, it is quite holy, so they won't truly relax until they get across that finish line, and they've got another lap to go before that happens. Germany 12, Eric Heil, who we were just talking about, being followed down by Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne, currently third overall, GBR4 in this regatta. Winners of the European title last year, albeit not winners of the Open European title, which was won by Pete Burling and Blair Tuke. The team that is leading overall here, currently doing very well at potentially defending their title, but in this race in particular, not going so well. I wonder how they're getting on overall. In this race so far. Yeah,
they're still around mid-fleet. They're starting to close the gap and pick off some of the boats that are around them, but they're still pretty deep in the fleet, Andy.
So slim pickings for the Kiwis that made such light work of going through the fleet yesterday. I think they had a boat speed advantage as well as sailing really smart and with great boat handling yesterday. Boat handling not such a critical factor today. Boat speed always critical, of course. But going the right way is the most important thing, and I think it was up that first beat, that port tack start sent them in the wrong direction. Nice jibe drop there. Purple Jenica goes down, Austria 84.
And they're taking your advice?
Taking my advice, going back inshore, taking the left-hand mark again, and that's what they've done so far. But it looks like Jacopo Plazzi, the Italian boat, has closed a little bit of ground on the Austrians there. But the Italians also aiming inshore, just going out of picture. Nathan Outridge, Ian Jensen. Looks like they may have made some further gains down this run.
I think they may have picked up another place and sit in third in this race now.
And indeed they have, because that's GBR 114 who went round in third place. They've lost Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen down this run. So Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett now drop down to fourth place, but still a good score for them if they could hold on to that. Round goes Australia, round the left-hand mark. Round goes GBR 114, round the left-hand mark. Everyone heading inshore.
And that makes it a little bit easier if you're the leader, too, if everyone's following you in.
Yeah, this is all playing into the hands of the Austrians. The Austrians maybe caught a little bit by the Italians down that run. But, yeah, tactically, life being made very easy. Everyone did a jibe set, the top few round the mark. They went out to sea. Now everyone's going back inshore, so they're doing the square. They're going inshore for the upwind phase, going out to sea for the downwind phase. Austrians sailing away from this there, just easing the mainsail, which suggests that they have good breeze. Another view of Eric Heil dropping the kite, and it's Thomas Plussel, in fact, at the front of that boat that drops the kite. Two British boats going round together. GBR 10 is John Pink, just immediately tacking away. GBR 4, Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne, third in this regatta so far. Winner of the European title for the last 2 years, but yet to win the Open European title, because it's always been an Aussie or a Kiwi that's taken that. So, boat coming on top of them a little bit there for the race leaders. Also got to think about some traffic. Nothing to do with this race, but you just got to get on with what's out there. And yesterday we had ferries going through the course and potentially mucking up the start line. You just got to deal with some of this traffic, and maybe that's why the Aussies are so good at skiff sailing, because that's what they deal with every weekend on Sydney Harbour.
Sydney Harbour, exactly. Well, Andy, the bad news for Pete Burling and Blair Tuke is they are deep in the fleet. They're probably just on the back half of mid-fleet here, and with Nathan Outteridge having a good race, they might relinquish the overall leadership. The good news for them, they've got several boats fairly close to them, and so there's a reasonable chance that they may be able to pick off another 1 or 2 places here. And every point being so critical right now, that'll be their focus, is just trying to get every last boat that they can. But certainly it's not going their way today, as Burling and Tuke well back in the fleet.
Yeah, so this is looking very good for the Australians, who have moved up into third in this race, just chipping away, taking place by place. Whether they can get it back into the Italians and the Austrians, we'll have to see, because it's quite a gap to the top 2 in this race. But Nathan Outteridge will have some sense of where Pete Burling and Blair Tuke are back in the fleet, and that's got to put a bit of a smile on his face, I would think.
Well, the consistency that he's shown as well. I mean, we talked about Pete Burling's 3-win day yesterday, but the previous day it was Nathan Outteridge that popped off 3 bullets in a 3rd place. And I think yesterday all his finishes were within the top 5. He's looking at 3rd again just now. So he's had a nice little roll here of top 5 finishes.
And you can see just how much traffic the Kiwis have got to get through. Maybe they're just about to take a Swedish boat, round the inside of this mark here. You can see the Swedish boat middle of picture and the Kiwi boat just behind. But no, the Kiwis are going to have to tack away immediately, and the boat is dead stopped. So that's probably not the rounding they want. They did a jibe drop. They rounded up inside, but with no space, and so they had to tack off to find some clear air. And it's tough going for the Kiwis today.
Well, that was our overall series leader, Peter Burling and Blair Tuke. And, of course, you're watching us here at the European 49er and 49er FX Championships in Helsinki. And this is our first race of the day. We're going to have 6 races for you today, 3 in the 49er class, 3 in the 49er FX class. And this is just the first race. We've done 2 laps now, Andy. We're on the final lap of race 1 in the 49er class. And so far, our overall series leader having a tough day.
Someone who's having a great day at the moment is Austria 84 in the middle of picture, still leading this race. It's only really the Italians that could probably threaten them. Having said that, it's still very patchy out there, but I think the Austrians will hold on to this, and that's going to move them up nicely. The battle today is all about making the final 10, because tomorrow, the final day's racing, is theatre-style racing. It's 3 very short course races, but it's only open to the top 10 who make it through from today. And the Austrians, they went into the day in 7th place overall. This is going to really start putting them into the top few places, and should help secure their place in the theatre-style finals tomorrow.
And the boats there, or the teams that are on the bubble, well, we've got Ryan Seaton and his crew from Ireland. They were in 11th place this morning as we start. Giuseppe Angelella is in 12th place. And, of course, the British boat helmed by John Pink in 13th place. Those are the boats on the bubble. Those are the teams to watch that we'll be looking for as we expect them trying to move up.
There's still time for some others further down in the teens to get back in, but they've really got to start putting the hammer down. At the end of this race, there's only 2 more races available to them to get back into the top 10. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see who is on that bubble. We see GBR 10, one of the boats that you just mentioned, just going through attack there. John Pink, Stu Bithell. Stu Bithell, an Olympic silver medalist in the 472 years ago. Whatever boat he gets into, he makes a difference. And the thing about them was they were another boat that ran aground a few days ago. They had water pouring in through the centerboard case. So, Peter, what do? You've got 2 more races to go in the day. You've got water pouring up through the middle of the boat. What are you going to do? Just go home or keep on racing? What do?
You call your coach and you keep racing. Say help.
Well, they finished that race. That was pretty disastrous for them. Or maybe they didn't actually. Maybe their centerboard was so shattered, but they stayed out there. They pulled the boat up onto the coach boat. They tried to drain it, pulled the back bung out as much as possible. So John Pink came up with the idea of pulling the back bung out, but there's a bung at the front of the boat as well. So it's Stu Bithell's idea to pull the front bung out, and they sailed the next race with both bungs open. And so that created a flow-through effect. So when they were planing downwind, the boat was pretty much empty, but they were basically taking in water
so
upwind.
Filling it up upwind and emptying it downwind.
But not too much, and they finished 4th in that race with the boat effectively an open canoe. So there's the Austrians, the purple boat on the left-hand side, purple Jenica coming down to the finish now. Last run, and they're still in the lead. But you can see that the black Jenica of the Italians is still not too far behind.
It's not far behind.
And not too far behind is the blue Jenica of Australia, Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen, the Olympic champions. Jibe for the leaders, safely through, and that's always a moment of relief when you can get across the boat behind. And in fact, the Italians, just going out of picture, look soft, and I can see why the Austrians jibed there. It was just beginning to soften up, and they jibed out of there before it got too soft.
And Nick Asher is going to go around in fourth, and right behind him will be Dylan Fletcher.
So that's a little bit of a gain for Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne, I would think.
That's right, and Eric Heil is right in that mix as well.
So Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne got ahead of Eric Heil. And what you see there are the overall standings on the left of picture now. So you see that Nathan Outridge has indeed moved into the lead if things were to stay the way they are now. We've now just flicked on the viewer to Delacarth, who is now leading. We know him to be leading this race, so that's the standings in this particular race that we're watching now. Jacopo Plazzi in second. But it's it looks like I thought Outridge had maybe moved into second there for a moment, but it's still the Italians, Plazzi, who are in second in this race, Outridge in third.
Yeah, and I think we'll see there's a real battle there for second and third place all the way to the finish line here, Andy.
Well, the Aussies seem to be quite fast downwind. That seems to be where they've taken their places, and that's often the case with Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen. They sometimes have a little extra click of pace downwind, and also very, very smart. They seem to spot breeze that other people are a little bit slower to spot. That seems to be one of their benefits. Back a picture, you can see the Germans far out to sea there. Maybe that could be another flight, actually. It could be another bunch of 49ers, so ignore that. Austrians now halfway down to the finish. You can see it softening up there, bending their legs. Still getting every bit of power they can out of this boat, but they're quite high on their trapeze, looking over the shoulder. They've done a lot of jibing down this run, really staying quite defensive, sailing down the middle of the run, not wanting to get out to too far to either one side. They don't want people to get leverage on them. So you stay in the middle of the course, and also you're looking for the best breeze, and that's your biggest priority. And they seem to have picked a good spot to jibe there because they're a little bit more stretched there. And on starboard jibe, they look very comfortable there. Don't think anybody's going to get back to them.
No, I think they're going to run out of room in terms of trying to catch the Austrian boat. But certainly it's close between these first three. The finish, they're going to finish within a few seconds of each other.
So great sailing by Nico Delacarth and Nico Retsch, one of the most experienced teams in the fleet. They've been sailing this boat for probably a decade now. Just 100 meters away from the finish. And it's the purple Jenica that's about to come through the finish line. As you said, Peter, the next two aren't too far behind, but it's going to be the Austrians who hold on for the win. They took the lead from Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett early on in the race on the first run, and they've held it all the way. It must have been a nail-biting way around the track, but this three-lapper goes to the Austrians.
Well, just a fantastic race sailed there, and in some very difficult and challenging conditions. We said before the race started that there was going to be lots of snakes and ladders on this race course, and they just did a fantastic job of picking their way through it, especially in the first half of the race. From that point on, they were really able to defend their lead well.
They were, and it looks like they might have stretched away a little bit from the Italians, but well done to Jacopo Plazzi and Umberto Molinaris. They're in 18th overall at the moment, so one wonders if that might get them back in there, but the points gap up to the top 10 is quite large. Here are the new overall leaders. No, I'm sorry, that's Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett. We've already seen Nathan Outridge and Jensen go through the finish in third place.
That's right, yeah.
Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne looking to get down, not really in a strong tactical position here, having to jibe onto port. Are they going to be able to hold on to this? It's Eric Kyle from Germany against Great Britain, Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne. Will they be able to hold on for fifth place? Very, very tight there. and very difficult to call, but I think it might have gone to Great Britain just ahead of Germany, and another British boat just behind John Pink and Stu Bithell. So better results for the British there. I think that's a particularly important result for John Pink and Stu Bithell in 13th overall, and going into today just 6 points outside the top 10. So I think that might be enough to get them up inside the top 10. So a really critical race there for John Pink and Stu Bithell.
Well, Andy, I believe we're going to end up with a new overall series leader right now with Nathan Outteridge. That third place finish should be good enough. And we'll see how many places Peter Burling and Blair Tuke have finished behind. But I believe there are the requisite 8 boats in between that would allow Nathan Outteridge to take over the overall lead here.
So if they get one more race in, I understand that there's a discard that would kick in.
Another discard would kick in, and that would certainly be helpful to the New Zealand crew.
Yeah, so still not a disaster. Second overall, 2 points off the lead. But they're going to need to think differently for the next race. Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne, they were, what, 5th in that race? 4th in that race, I think, just then. Anyway, that still leaves them in 3rd overall. And you can see how critical it was for them to beat the Germans across the line, if indeed that's what they managed to do, because it's still very close on points between 3rd and 4th. Oh, hang on, we've just seen a shift. So maybe Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne are actually in 2nd overall, maybe Pete Burling and Blair Tuke in 3rd overall. And those are the positions for that race just then. And it confirms that Dylan Fletcher did beat Eric Heil for 5th place. Eric Heil, the German sailor, in 6th. So
every point critical here, Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dylan Fletcher will have been very aware of that. And also very aware of the fact that it was Eric Heil who took Dylan Fletcher into the protest room last night as well. So there's a little bit of needle between those two. And Dylan Fletcher was a little bit confused about why that had happened. But it seems that he managed to get out of the protest room unscathed and undisqualified. So a little bit of needle going on between that British and German team. Seeing the Kiwis, who were leading going into today, wearing the yellow jerseys. The yellow jersey was a kiss of death yesterday for the French, and indeed for the Brazilians in the 49er FX. We didn't see anyone manage to hang on to the yellow jersey yesterday. And at the moment already, the yellow jersey would be taken away from Pete Burling and Blair Tuke, because already they've slipped off the top spot after just one race today. 8 points seem like quite a secure kind of lead for them going into
well,
today.
certainly the way they were sailing yesterday. I mean, I wouldn't have bet against them being able to hold on here, but well, I would have lost some money then, wouldn't I? Although the day's not over, Andy.
But you asked me if they were going to win all 3 races today, and I didn't see that happening, and that hasn't happened. I mean, it was never going to happen, I don't think. I think I was just still amazed that they managed to do that yesterday. You just don't see that very often in Olympic level racing.
No, they certainly were on fire yesterday. A little bit off the pace in race 1 today, and that's been enough to allow a new series leader to emerge here, the European 49er Championships. Nathan Outteridge, crew Ian Jensen, they are our overall leaders now after the 4th race of Gold Fleet Racing, 4 of 6. So we've got 2 more races scheduled today, and we should be able to roll into a start, I would imagine, fairly quickly. We haven't heard any word from the race committee about any possible course alignment changes, but I think, Andy, looking at the way that race course was set up, I don't think there should be an issue with that.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it looked like there was plenty of tacking to be done on both port and starboard tacks going upwind, and plenty of manoeuvres downwind as well. So no reason why you would need to move things around too much, I wouldn't think. But anyway, David Campbell-James, he works regularly with the 49er fleet. He knows exactly what they want and what they're prepared to put up with.
All right, well, Andy, as we wait for the second race of the day to start, we did get a chance to catch up with Nathan Outteridge's crew, Ian Jensen. I think we'll be able to take a look at that interview just now.
Well, the forecast is actually for it to be quite windy, but at the moment it's sort of 10 knots, so I guess anything could really happen. I think if it clears up a bit, we'll probably get a bit more breeze, but we'll just wait and see, I guess.
Have you guys done any training in a lot of wind recently?
Oh, the regatta itself's been quite windy, and we had a couple of days before the event that were pretty windy, but yeah, apart from that, we haven't really done much this year in too much wind. We've got 4 boats in development squad, and you know, 2 of them are in gold at the moment. Will's in 9th, Steve's in about 20th. Can move up quite a ways, and the young boys just missed out. I think they're 27th or something like that today. And yeah, I think the squad's really coming along nicely, and I think it shows that working together and sharing information is really sort of helping everyone. And it certainly helped us get back on track, and we're starting to sail a bit better now than we were probably 6 months ago.
Well, that was Ian Jensen. He's sailing with Nathan Outeridge. They're our overall series leaders, and they just made that passing move with a great result here in the first race of 3 races scheduled. And they were able to make the pass because despite being 8 points behind Peter Burling coming into today, the Kiwis had a bit of a shocker in this first race.
Yeah, they sure did. They went for the port tack start, which I was surprised by. In fact, Nathan Outeridge, when we were speaking to him earlier, Peter, he wondered if Pete Burling was going to go for the port tack start. But the lighter the wind, the less effective it tends to be. And it's even less effective if it takes you out to the wrong side of the course. And it seemed like there was quite a strong trend to go left. I'm quite surprised that the Kiwis didn't do a little bit more homework before the start and maybe establish that. But maybe the pattern wasn't that strong.
Well, Andy, one of the things I noticed today, the launch ramp, the last boats in the water were Nathan Outeridge and Pete Burling, the Kiwi boats. They were very late to launch. Why would that be? Why? I would typically think the series leaders would want to be the first off the dock and to get out and to suss out the conditions. What would be the reason to go out later?
Yeah, I don't really understand it myself. I was quite surprised how laid back Nathan Outeridge was in particular, who we spoke to just minutes before he was due to go out, and he still hadn't got into his wetsuit.
No, he's still wearing jeans.
Yeah. Leaving Ian Jensen, his crew, to do all the work, get the boat ready. But we're very, very close to the starting area. We're literally just 100 meters away, so there was very little sailing to be done to get onto the course. But
no,
you still want to do your homework.
Yeah, that's true. And Ian Jensen there talking about the wind conditions and saying a lighter breeze day in the morning, building throughout the day. And we've heard that from a few of the sailors too. So we're expecting the wind to come up in the afternoon. And of course, as we get through lunchtime and into the early afternoon, that's when we switch over to the 49er FX class. And
that will probably suit the Kiwis in the 49er FX class, who are leading, not leading overall. They had a great day yesterday, but just a point off the lead from Ida Nielsen, the defending European champion from Denmark. I think Pete Burling and Blair Tuke probably wish they were holding on till the afternoon for a bit of strong winds, because life just gets a little bit easier for the front runners. There's a bit more of an established pecking order in strong winds.
Right. Well, certainly when you have those guys who just seem to have that boat handling advantage over the rest of the fleet, as the wind goes up, as the racing gets harder and physically more demanding, that's when you see that advantage really come to the fore. Today we've been sailing in sort of that 8 to 9, maybe 10 knots at times range. I think it probably looked a little bit softer than that also in a few places on the racetrack.
Yeah, it does. When you see the sailors start to bend their legs and start to raise themselves on the trapeze wire, you're probably only looking at about 7 or 8, maybe 9 knots, because these boats power up so quickly. It's incredible how much power they derive from these rigs, certainly compared with the older, smaller rigs that the 49ers started out with 15 years ago. The crew weights are quite high as well these days. They're about 155 kilos all up. That's both helm and crew combined. That's a sort of a typical weight. And we were speaking to Nathan Outeridge last night, and I was asking Nathan how much heavier he is now compared with what he was when he was competing in the 2008 Olympics in China, which was predicted to be a really, really light wind regatta. He said he's about 20 kilos heavier now than he was for China
Yeah.
6 years ago. With incredible difference in body weight.
And I think both him and Ian are heavier as well. So all up, they're
All up
more,
about
more
30 kilos
heavier. Yeah.
than their competitive crew weight for China. And that, if you remember, was mostly a light wind regatta, but there
Until
was
the
that
end.
epic race, that epic medal race. And Nathan Outridge had the opportunity, he was sailing with a different crew then, Ben Austin. They had the opportunity coming down the final run to win the gold medal. They capsized, they missed crossing the finish line, and they didn't get a medal at all. I think they might have even finished in 6th place. So that was just how close it was on points between the top few boats. But to come just one capsize down the final run between a gold medal and nothing.
Yeah.
You can imagine where he got his motivation from to go on and win 4 world championships.
Well, he doesn't lack for motivation, Nathan Outridge, and we can see that through a fairly amazing scoreline that they've put up over the last 3 days now. Every finish within the top 5, and I think 3 race wins in there as well. So just a wonderful racing so far by Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen over the last 3 days, and that's really enabled them to get into the lead. They didn't have a good opening day to the regatta here.
No, they didn't, and that raised some question marks, but it turned out that it was just a one-day blip. It showed that they're still human, they're still mortal. Going into London 2012, just the U flag just went up there, by the way, which tells us we've got 4 minutes to the next start. But going into London 2012, Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen were virtually unbeaten in any regatta going into the Olympics, and no surprise to anyone, they dominated the Olympics and they won the gold medal with a race to spare. But things aren't going so easily for them. The guys that won the silver medal, also with relative ease, it has to be said, were the up-and-coming Pete Burling and Blair Tuke. They're not up-and-coming anymore. They are the reigning world champions. Yeah, they've arrived.
Well, we're about, three and a half minutes away from start time here for the second race of the day. This will be the 5th race of Gold Fleet racing here in the men's 49er class at the European Championships here in Helsinki. And conditions, well, we've seen it all. We started 2 days ago with survival conditions, winds approaching 20 knots. Yesterday in that sort of 13 to 16 knot range, and today a little bit softer again, more in the 8 to 10 knot range.
The race winners just sailing out of picture there, Austria 84. They won just now. Really good race by Nico Delacarth, Nico Rech, 4th in the last Olympic Games. That you would think would give you some motivation for Rio 2016. So we've got about 2.5 minutes to the next start. So who is going to think about the port tack start this time? We see in the middle of the screen there, New Zealand won. Pete Burling and Blair Tuke, the reigning world champions, had a go at the port tack start. It worked very well for them yesterday. Worked disastrously for them this morning in the first race.
They're coming down towards that end of the line again.
Yeah, they're going to have another look at it. Yeah.
They've just sailed off the left side of our screen, so they're coming down towards the pin end of the line. Doesn't necessarily mean they're looking at a port tack start, but certainly they're heading that way.
Breeze is up slightly. There's a little bit more breeze than we had for the first race. So that makes the possibility of a port tack start maybe slightly more tempting. And it's the Kiwis who are up at the left-hand end of the line at the moment. We saw Denmark 30, who we see on screen there now, have a disastrous start to the last race. They did make up a few. That's Jonas Warrer, the guy who won those 2008 Olympic Games that we were talking about just now, sailing with a new crew, Anders Thompson. And good to see that on start line there is GBR 98. They were the guys that broke their mast track this morning, Dave Evans and Ed Powis. And we've got about a minute to go. Should see that red and white flag come down. That's the U flag. There it goes. 1 minute to go. France 14 quite high on the line there. Looking at their positioning, you would think France 14 is thinking about the port tack start. So are they going to be the Lone Rangers going out to sea? Mathieu Frey and Jan Rocheria. Croatia also on port tack. So there's a few that look like they might be thinking about it. The other French boat, France 3, Manu Dien, looking like they're thinking about the port tack start. There's still 30 seconds to go. And looking at that position for France 3, there can only be one option, and that is the port tack start.
The port tack start. And Pete Burling very high on the line at the pin as well, Andy.
Yeah, I would be worrying about that with 15 seconds to go. Has he timed his run too early? He's going to have to go for the port tack start. I don't know if that was his intention, but that's a very,
They're in a lot of trouble here.
If this start gets away cleanly, then will they be up their second rank on the port tack start? That is an awful start by the Kiwis. Looks like they might have managed to find some clear air. Are they going to be able to get over some of the starboard tackers that the French boat France 3 didn't? No, they're going to have to follow the French through. Will they weave a way through? Yes,
yeah,
they
found a way through about halfway through the fleet.
Ooh.
So
Ooh.
just
managing to squeak that leeward tiller. You've always got the tiller that you're not using sitting down off the leeward wing, and that was a squeaky moment there for Pete Burling.
And all clear on the start. Okay, so a 3-lap course, slightly shorter than what we sailed in the first race of the day. So they've closed it up a little bit, but still 3 laps of the course. And a pretty nice recovery or salvage job there, I think, Andy, by Peter Burling, because with 10 or 15 seconds to go, he didn't look like he had very much going on that start.
No, and I can't think that he was thinking about the port tack start with 30 or 40 seconds to go. I think that was salvaging what he could from a bad situation. I think he timed his run into the pin end too early to be able to win the pin on starboard tack, so he bailed out and he went for the best that he could, which was get some kind of port tack start. But it was a second row port tack start where he was in danger of falling into the French. Now, it looked like he might have just managed to get a line out of the past the starboard tackers that the French didn't manage. Going out on the left-hand side, back of picture, we see Denmark 30, the 2008 Olympic champion Jonas Warrer. Here, front of picture, Australia 20. It's Steve Thomas and Sam Phillips. Currently in about 20th overall, 21st going into today.
And Andy, another team that's a little bit in the middle of the fleet right now is Nathan Outeridge and Ian Jensen. They're actually sailing up the middle of the racetrack, and that's interesting. They've already done 2 or 3 tacks. Because speaking with Nathan yesterday, he also mentioned that idea that both extremes of the race course were fine. You could really be on either side, but coming through the middle was very slow and painful. And that's where he finds himself just now in the second race of the day.
So any idea how it worked out for those brave port tack starters? France 3 I'm wondering about, because they were the ones that clearly wanted it. That was their game plan. For the Kiwis, it was a bit more of a plan B.
France 3 isn't looking too bad, and actually neither is Peter Burling right now, but I think they'll certainly be up. Well, they're going to be up in the top half of the fleet, but we're going to need a little bit more time to see how this shakes out.
We just saw on the previous picture Austria 84. They won the previous race and they were fully stretched, looking like they're pretty far up the fleet in this race as well, so that'll be good news for them. France 14, we just saw in picture. Oh, back onto Austria 84. That looks like they're fairly well placed, but I don't know if you see them on the tracking at all, Peter.
Yeah, they are. They're in the middle of the racetrack right now. I don't think they're bow forward on the rest of the fleet, but they're certainly going to be up there near the leading group. I have to say, Nathan Outeridge, they're just getting absolutely buried and hammered back into the fleet right now.
So Dave Evans and Ed Powis, they're back on the race course. They missed the first race this morning because they discovered very belatedly when they hoisted their mainsail that the track was broken on their mast, so they had to sit out the first race. I saw them sitting on the edge of the course watching everybody else go around the track, which is an awful feeling. But when you get back into the racing, having missed one, it maybe gives you extra motivation. You've got your bit between your teeth, you're back on the water. Have you got any sense of how they're getting on?
Andy, I think you're right, and they're sailing very well right now. They're again, it's sort of in the middle of the racetrack, but their bow looks like it's fairly far forward on the fleet, so I'd expect to see them up near the leading group.
Looks like a Swedish boat on left of our screen at the moment. And very, very close here. This looks like running aground territory where some of these boats are going here. But I guess if you stay that side of the post that we're looking at, maybe it's okay.
Should be all right, yeah.
But there's been plenty of times this week when people haven't been
Thought that
okay.
they were going to be okay. Well, another boat that I'm watching fairly closely is Pete Burling, and I think they've done an incredible job of salvaging what looked to be a very difficult start. I don't think they're going to be leading around this top mark, but they're going to be near the leading group.
Well, they had to put it all on the line for that port tack start. It's not the start they wanted to make. It was very belated, real split second decision making. But that looks very healthy for them when you see them on left of screen there.
It does look very healthy. I'm not quite sure if anyone's going to be able to come in from the left side of the racetrack and get in front of them, but they may actually end up leading around this top mark.
Well, that would be an incredible comeback from a very shaky start.
In fact, I think it's all going to come down to whether they can actually lay the mark or if they just need to do a little double tack. And if they're squeezing up to it, how slow they're going as they get there. But if they're able to make it, they might just be the ones who lead us around this top mark.
The breeze has picked up a little bit. We were told that the breeze would increase.
And it seems a little windier at the top of the course as well, I think. And
would you believe it? It looks like it may well be the Kiwis that are going to be first round. We'll see very, very shortly.
Yeah, Eric Hall might be able to come up in here and just squeeze inside of them, but I'm not sure. I think he's going to end up crossing behind. I think we've just seen that. So what a leg by Peter Burling and Blair Tuke. They are able to squeeze up. You can see them doing that last little pinch up to get around the mark. And they're clean, and they're ahead, Andy.
Well, I got to eat my words on that one. I thought that was a terrible start they made there, and somehow they pulled it back. Eric Hall goes round in second, Spanish round in third. Oh, whoa! Will the British boat be able to stay upright? Nearly put it in the drink there. And will they be able to get round the mark from there? They're going to lose a lot of places. I think that's John Pink and Stu Bithell made the mistake there, and there's no way back in for them. They might have to jibe round from. Oh, they're going to scrape round and do their penalty afterwards.
To be honest, that might be faster than what the alternative that presented itself there.
Surely they're not going to go straight for the kite.
Looks like.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that works exactly, but maybe they're going to do their 360 with a kite up.
Well,
so that was very congested
Andy,
round there.
The boat that's very deep in the fleet this time is Nathan Outeridge. So again, we could have the lead flip it back to Peter Burling.
And there we see the leaders going into this race with a lot to do. If anyone can climb back through the fleet, it's these guys, the reigning Olympic champions, but they've got a lot of work on. Dylan Fletcher just went out of picture there. Not a great race for them either. So how will GBR 4 and Australia 5 be able to come through the fleet? We didn't see Pete Burling and Blair Tuke manage to make much of a go of it, but there go Pete Burling and Blair Tuke leading this race. New Zealand won back where they would expect to be.
Yeah, and if anything, they've just extended away a little bit down this run. So they're looking back to normal service resuming from what we saw yesterday. Very, very strong and dominant. And they're just able, I'm just looking on the tracking, they're just sailing deeper than the other boats right now. They're able to sail just a slightly better angle. Certainly, they're not giving up anything in boat speed. And when you can sail deeper on the downwind legs, that's a pretty nice way to sail.
That's lovely. That's as valuable to you as being able to sail higher than people going upwind. Going through a jibe. Pete Burling and Blair Tuke leading this race and could well put them back in the overall lead as well. Nice
that's
jibe.
Going to depend on how far back Nathan Outeridge ends up finishing. And as you said, one of the things, if you were going to see somebody be able to pick off some places, it would probably be a sailor like Nathan Outeridge, but he's going to have an awful lot of work to do on the rest of this race.
But the thing that might work in their favour is you can see it's a little bit windier than it was for the previous race won by the Austrians. And the boats are a little bit more pressed. They're going a bit faster. And it looks like they might have overcooked it here. Maybe they've actually sailed a little bit further than they needed to, and maybe a change in wind speed has caught them out. It's not going to be a disaster by any means. But they looked a little bit more pressed than they would like to have been. And they've given away 1 or 2 boat lengths there. A little bit down on where they would like to have been, but still a good rounding with speed, going left, and going inshore. Followed by the Irish. It looks like the Irish might have taken up second place ahead of the Germans. May not be Irish, could be Italian.
I think that might be one of the French boats there, Andy.
Oh, it could be French. Oh, so it could be Manu Dien,
Yeah.
who was leading overall going into yesterday. So a better race by the French. Third in last year's World Championships. Winners of last year's World Championships and wearing the yellow jerseys, back where they would expect to be. Leading this race is Pete Burling and Blair Tuke. Denmark 30, I think we're looking at there. That is the 2008 Olympic champion Jonas Warrer trying to get across the front of some starboard tackers. Will he manage it? That's how difficult things when you're further back in the fleet. Pete Burling and Blair Tuke sailing well ahead of the rest of the fleet there.
Yeah, they've got nothing to worry about up where they are.
And I think I just saw the orange Jenica of the Irish almost at the back of the fleet. And the Irish, one of those teams, that's the Irish Kite, just about to come down now, a long, long way back. And that's not good news for Irish fans because those guys need to get their skates on. They came into the day in 11th place overall, and it's all about making the top 10, all about getting in to the final 10 spots for Theatre Star Racing tomorrow. Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne also some way back in the pack. We saw them go round with Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen.
That's right.
So those are the two boats that we would really expect to have some good climbing speed.
Well, but if anything, I think Nathan Outridge may have gone backwards on down this run, Andy. They've really struggled to make any inroads. Again, the good news is there are a lot of boats very close to them, so that would be good news for them in terms of being able to pick off some places, but they are very, very deep in the fleet right now.
And how are the Kiwis getting on, would you say? Are they looking secure in their lead?
Yeah, they look absolutely fine. And again, the nice thing for the Kiwis is, for the most part, the fleet is following them. Their closest opposition is following them. The exception to that is the Germans. Kyle, he's gone out to the right-hand side of the racetrack a little bit further than the Team New Zealand guys. But otherwise, the Kiwis look to have this under control.
Not as windy as yesterday, but a little increase in breeze. And once they get their nose ahead, it's really hard to see people getting it back off the Kiwis.
Well, it was interesting when we did have Blair Tuke in for the interview yesterday after racing. He talked about everything going well for them, but in particular the boat going well. And he said there were a few times where they weren't able to put the boat where they wanted it, but they had enough speed to kind of muscle their way out. And when you're able to do that, it certainly makes your tactical options much more palatable because, as we saw with that start, we don't think that's the start they wanted. But certainly through some smart sailing and some good speed, they were able to emerge and go around that top mark in first place. That's a great feeling when you've got that kind of speed.
It sure is. It opens up tactical options that are never even available to you if you don't have that boat speed. The French also got the port tack start, and the French, France 3, Manu Dien and Stéphane Christodis. They are also doing extremely well. Well, I wish I could show you the Spice Girls that are just going past our tent, but we'll stay focused on the 49er racing.
Yeah,
if we
there seems to be the party bus has just gone past.
Well, maybe those are the cheerleaders for the Kiwis when they come back ashore later. Something for them to look forward to.
Well, Andy, we've got a cross coming up here, and the Team New Zealand guys are going to be, well, I wouldn't say well ahead, but comfortably ahead of the Germans. They got a nice lead on the French as well behind them, so I think Burling and Tuke are going to be very, very happy with where they are right now.
Yeah, looking really comfortable there. Sailing down a header by the look of it there. Oh, no,
No.
sailing over there. Yeah, they were just bearing away to go around the mark. They got up that windward leg incredibly quickly.
Yeah, again, we did hear that the race course was shortened a little bit, so we don't know what impact that has, but certainly the Kiwis around that mark, and they're gone. This is halfway through the race. It's race 2 of 3. We're halfway through. It's a 3-lap race. This is the second time around the top mark, and the New Zealand guys are just absolutely flying in race 2. A great start, and it certainly looks like they're well positioned for a great finish as well.
It looked like Eric Harle had regained second place from the French and did a jibe set there. So the Kiwis sailed defensively by doing a jibe as well. And a lot of the boats coming out of the top mark now are going for the straight jibe set.
Yeah, and that's the Italians going behind in fourth place as well, Giuseppe Angelella.
The Italians sailing pretty well today. Maybe a different Italian boat each time, but there's a couple of Italian boats that are doing well there. Angelella, in fact, was the leader after day one, the wearer of the yellow jersey. But is anyone going to be able to wear the yellow jersey for more than 2 days on the trot? Well, if Pete Burling and Blair Tuke continue to win this race, maybe they will get back into the lead overall. And
of course, things will shake up a little bit if another discard comes into play and you're able to drop another one of your worst results.
Well, that's true too. And after this race, they should get the discard, which means that they would be able to drop that disastrous first race this morning, which is exactly what the Kiwis would need.
Yeah. And of course, I think Nathan Outteridge would be happy to be able to drop this race as well. Certainly the way it's going through the first half of this race.
So it goes to show when these guys have to climb through the fleet, they don't always manage it. There are still some conditions where it's too tough for even the best to come through and to get their way through. Yellow jersey say that they're the series leaders and they're the race leaders going round the mark.
And they got down that leg very quickly as well, didn't they?
This is a short course. I think we heard David Campbell-James say it was half a nautical mile, and they're just flying down there.
Well, this is reminiscent of the last race of the day yesterday, where they just did the horizon job on the fleet. They're going so well right now and just extending away.
That's I think the French boat going around there, probably still in third place, unless they've managed to get ahead of Eric Heil.
No, they're trailing Eric Heil still. So second place for Germany, third place for France, and fourth place, but some distance back for the Italians.
And a British boat that may not be on tracking. So I think there's a British boat that's got got into fourth place just ahead of the Italians. John Pink and Stu Bithell just squeezed their way around that windward mark earlier on. And another British boat going out to sea. Irish boat, the Providence Jenica, a long way back from the race leaders. Just see the race leaders, the rig swinging around there a bit. It's shifty for them. Brazilian boat coming round. That's Dante Bianchi. Thomas Lobier. Rio sailors hoping to sail on home waters in 2 years' time at Rio 2016, the venue for the next Olympic Games. Here's the traffic. Sweden going round ahead of Portugal. Going round ahead of Great Britain. That's Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne. Still with a lot of traffic to get through. And not a great rounding there. Looks like Alan Syne is up on the bow. Maybe they'd lost the Jenica sheets around the front of the bow, but had to go up there and do some boat maintenance there, which is not an ideal exit out of the mark.
Yeah, and somewhere in that big boats was our overall leaders, Nathan Outteridge.
Lot of traffic. So Spice Girls on the return fly past. Don't know if we'll be seeing them again. GBR 10, John Pink, Stu Bithell, following the race leaders, the Kiwis on port tack. Portugal following them in the same line. And it looks like good breeze now. It looks like everyone is fully stretched. A lot more solid breeze than we saw for race one.
And certainly it seems to have filled in all across the racetrack now. Well, we've got our race leaders, Peter Burling, Blair Tuke, and they're stretching away here. It's the final lap of the course. They're going upwind for the third and final time, and New Zealand is at the top of the fleet with a comfortable lead, I would say.
John Pink and Stu Bithell finding breeze a little bit higher than the Kiwis, but the Kiwis attacking anyway. And will that be on the ley line already? It's such a short course. It could well be that the Kiwis are already up on ley line, in which case they've just done their final tack for the race.
Yeah, I think they have. Andy, we'll be seeing that kite go up not too long from now.
So you wonder if David Campbell-James is going to put in an extra lap for the next race, because at the moment we're only on 20 minutes, and by the time they get down to the finish, it's probably only going to be 23 minutes or so. So very, very short race. But that's the way they'll want it. Once you're in the lead, you want the race to stop. Having said that, they're so dominant in these conditions. Maybe they're loving every moment.
Yeah,
maybe they'd be happy to do another 3 laps.
Well, they're coming up towards that windward mark for the third and final time. That's Peter Burling and crew Blair Tuke, and they're going to be the overall series leaders again, regaining the overall series lead.
So they made sailing out to sea work on this occasion. I think the reason for that, coming off that port tack start, was that they were very high. Once they got past all the starboard tackers, I think they were on the lifted tack. And that worked for France 3, and it worked for New Zealand 1.
Yeah, they. I mean, the 2 boats that that did the port tack start, they're certainly among the top 3 or 4 here, with France 3, I think, currently in 3rd place, and I think they're probably fairly secure in that right now.
Pete Burling and Blair Tuke not far off the windward mark now. About to go round for what we believe is the final time in race 2 of Saturday's Gold Fleet racing. Beautiful set there with the white Jenica. Eric Heil, Thomas Plussel going round. Looks like they've made a bit of distance back on the Kiwis. They're a little bit closer than they were. They also go for the straight set this time. They tried the jibe set the previous time. But the Germans are within attacking distance of the Kiwis. So somewhere the Kiwis have lost a bit of ground.
Yeah, I think they did find one set of tacks where they weren't on the favored shift, and they probably dropped back a little bit there. But what's interesting to me is they've been so powerful on the downwind legs. I think it's a lot to ask, and I think they're going to be in a strong position tactically to just focus on the German boat. I don't think anybody further back is of any concern to them. So I think it's a big ask to think that the Germans are going to be able to do a pass here.
Just saw a Spanish boat going round. I'm pretty sure that was the Paz brothers who were allowed back in as the 27th boat today. It's sort of the Willy Wonka golden ticket went to the Spanish, and they're making the most of it. Up in the top few in this race. Quite big gaps.
Yeah, you can see even on this shorter race course, the fleet does spread out very, very quickly, and by the time you get onto that 3rd lap, the gaps get bigger, and you may have 1 or 2 places to defend or attack, but it's really hard to make any significant gains or losses.
Pete Burling and Blair Tuke, another power jibe there. Always put so much bodywork into these manoeuvres. Really, really power the boat through these manoeuvres.
And indeed, they have started to extend away again a little bit from the Germans who are chasing them. So really just an aberration, I guess, in the first race this morning for the guys from New Zealand, because they're, well, this will be, what, 4 or 5 race wins now.
It's starting to look that way, isn't it? It's starting to look like it was just a blip, that bad race that they had this morning. But let's not forget, they had a pretty bad start. They had a starting strategy that didn't work, but their plan B was really fantastic. You know, it looked like they weren't going to get anything out of port tack start, but turned out to be a winning move.
It'll be interesting to hear after the race, Andy, if that was intentional, if that was exactly what they wanted to do, or if that was something they were sort of forced into by circumstances and the positions of the other boats, because that was sort of what it looked like to us, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if that was their intention, to come in so late the way they did and tack so high up on the pin end, because really they were being dictated to by the French. They were lucky, or maybe just braver than the French, in that they managed to get over one of the starboard tackers that the French didn't, and that gave them a clear lane out to the right-hand side. So that will feel good. That'll feel good. After this morning's race, that's a big improvement for the Kiwis, and they're back where they expect to be. And I wonder if that will be sufficient to put them back in the overall lead, because Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen, how are they getting on at the moment?
Well, it's interesting. They, I don't think that they were in a brilliant position going around the top mark, probably back in certainly in the back half of the fleet, down around 17th, we think. But they're looking a little bit, they've made an interesting move here. And on the tracking, certainly, there's a lot of boats within range of them. And I could see them moving up a few places on this final run.
Second place was Germany. Third place was France. Going across in fourth is the British boat, John Pink and Stu Bithell. Stu Bithell, the Olympic silver medalist. Looking there at Eric Heil and Thomas Plussel, happy with their second in that race behind the Kiwis. And quite big gaps now. Those first few really had a bit of a stretch on everybody else.
Well, as we get in towards the finishes, the boat that I'm keeping my eye on here is Nathan Outridge on the tracking, and trying to see whether he's able to pick up a few spots. It won't be enough with Peter Burling winning this race. I'm sure that he's going to maintain the overall series lead. He's going to pick up a stack of points here on Outridge and Jensen, but it's a matter of damage control now, I think, for the Australians.
I think just now I saw Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syme come through in not too bad a spot. I think they made better gains than Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen. It could have been Nick Asher and Finn Sterrett that I was looking at. Brazilian boat jibing here. Just in back of picture was Dave Evans and Ed Powers. Now for a moment up that first beat, Dave Evans and Ed Powers are doing very well.
Well, and this will still be a pretty reasonable race finish for them, a top 10 position, I think. They came into the day in 22nd spot, so.
They finished 6th in the worlds in the past, so really they would be expecting better than this. Portuguese boat just going across the finish line. Jonas Wara not making much of an impact so far today. The 2008 Olympic champion, maybe finding his feet with a new crew, Anders Thompson.
Well, I think I think Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen have sailed a good downwind leg here, and I think they may have picked off 2 or 3 or 4 boats on this final run, and that'll be some consolation to them. But that streak of top 5 finishes, Andy, that Nathan Outridge was so proud of when we saw him yesterday is over.
The Kiwis must be wishing that that was the last race of the day, because they could have got ashore, they could have pulled their sails down and got their cover on their boat by the time Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen crossed the finish line. They managed to get their boat on the trolley yesterday by and pretty much before Nathan Outridge had crossed the line in 5th place. It was a whole lot worse today. But just coming back to that start, Nathan Outridge said that he thought that Pete Burling would be going for the port tack start. Well, I don't think he intended it this time round. But Ben Ramoka, you've done a bit of racing in the fleet. You were at the 2008 Olympics for Canada. What do you think was going on with the port tack starting?
Yeah, so the pin end start is the way I'd call this strategy. And some of the logic goes, at least with some people, that if you're going to try and win the pin, you absolutely have to win the pin. being the second or third or even fourth boat up is no good, because you're still pinched out. It's no better, and you can't tack at all. So the strategy is you try and win the pin, and then if you can't win the pin for any reason, either you like Burling and Tuke there, they were too low on it, or if you're actually stuck out and someone else is going to make it, you bail out and start on port, because if you're starting at the pin end of the line, it's favored already. So if you bail out, you come through on port. As soon as you can punch through any gap, you're already ahead of all those other people, because you're ahead of them and you've got one last tack. So that's what I suspect the Kiwis were doing, was they wanted the pin, they wanted to win the pin, they didn't set up quite perfectly, so they executed the plan B. But that's the second best option when you're trying to win the pin, as opposed to a last resort.
So maybe not the disaster that we had interpreted it to be from what Ben was saying just there, that you've got sort of 2 bites of the cherry when you go for the pin end start. So anyway, whatever their intentions were, it'd be great if we can find out what their take on that was a little bit later. They're so close to us in our commentary position, we could almost shout out to them now.
Well, certainly if they wanted to come over with the coach boat another 50 meters this way, we'd be able to do that. And we can see on the other side of us, Andy, at the boat ramp, the 49er FX class, they're starting to launch now. And those are the other races that we'll have coming up for you a little bit later this afternoon. We've had 2 races in the 49er class, and the top 2 teams that we had coming in to the day, which was Pete Burling leading overall and Nathan Outeridge. Well, they've both had good and bad races today, and I think that we've got Pete Burling. He's maintained his overall lead. He's at the top of the fleet right now, but he had a horrible first race, but really came back with a great second race. Nathan Outeridge was the opposite. Good in the first race, maybe picked off enough boats in the second race that doesn't become his discard race. I'm not sure, but certainly he'll be very happy if he's able to discard that second race today.
Yeah, sure will. I mean, it's nice to see that these guys are mortal, but they're not mortal for very long. They get straight back into their dominant ways.
Back into it, and certainly for Burling and Tuke, I think the interesting stat is that idea that they've won now 4 of the last 5 races, so they are on a tear, and they've won them all in very convincing fashion as well.
Yeah, once they get their nose ahead, they seem to be very, very hard to catch.
Well, that's in the 49er class, and again, we do have the 49er FX racing. That'll be coming up a little bit later. We have one more race in the 49ers, and we'll expect that to get underway in just a few more minutes. And I'm just going to check. I think we're able to queue up another video that we have here. This is the coach of the Australian team, and he's talking a little bit about some of the action that happens off the water when the guys have some time before the regatta started.
We're at the VM Go-Kart Centre near Helsinki Airport, and we're here for a bit of fun and relaxation. They're rivals, they're really big rivals, but they're also really good friends, so it's a chance for the guys to keep the rivalry going, have a bit of fun. They're always at each other in everything they do, Gibby and Blair in particular. Yeah, so coming here today, it's a bit of rivalry. It's a rivalry and it's fun, but it's almost like a continuum too, because it's never ending for the boys. Like whether it's karts or 49ers or A-class cats or moths or America's Cup boats, it just never stops. They're just at each other all the time, and it's a really good, friendly, healthy rivalry, and they all push each other. And for me to see it from the side, it's really good fun.
And Andy, that was the coach of the Australian team, Emmett Lazic, and he's talking about the rivalry that goes on between Peter Burling and Nathan Outeridge. And you know Emmett well. You've spent a bit of time chatting with him over the years.
Yeah, I crewed for him in the 49er once, one of the most demanding helmsmen I've ever sailed for. Expected me to do everything, including the washing up, as far as I can remember. Anyway, he is a fantastic sailor in his own right. great 12-foot skiff sailor, great 49er sailor in his day, and also you'd probably say the most successful coach in the 49er, because it was a Finnish team that won the first ever Olympic Games in the 49er in Sydney 2000. It was meant to go to the Australians. They were the hot favourites. But Emmett Lazic, the local coach from Sydney, coached the Finnish team to win the gold medal in Sydney and take it right out from under the noses of the Aussie favourites. Emmett Lazic has since then been recognised as a great coach by the Australians and sensibly been hired by the Australians.
Been repatriated.
Yeah, and disappointed not to help Nathan Outridge win that gold medal in 2008 when Nathan would have been the favourite. But they got it right in London 2012 and in a big way. And Emmett Lazic is a big part of their success.
Well, thanks, Andy. We're looking out on the racetrack as well. We're not into a start sequence yet. It's the third of 3 races today in the 49er fleet. And our overall series leader, wearing the yellow jacket, the yellow shirts, Peter Burling and Blair Tuke, and they've won the second race today. They didn't have a good first race, but I think they've recovered well, and they're going to have the overall series leadership going into this last race today. So we'll be keeping our eye on the front of the fleet. The other positions we want to watch are in that bubble area for being able to qualify for the theater racing that takes place tomorrow, and that's the top 10 boats. We want to keep our eye on the boats that are in 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, kind of see where those guys are sitting, and we'll be very interested to see who qualifies for the theater racing tomorrow. And just tell us a little bit about what's different about the racing tomorrow in terms of the setup compared to what's been going on these last few days.
First thing is we go from 27 boats down to just 10 boats on the racetrack, and as the number of boats reduces, so does the size of the course. So we're already on a pretty short course today, just half a mile long. Well, that's going to look long by tomorrow's standards. It's going to be just a matter of maybe 500, 600, 700 meters, and it's going to be bounded on each side by lane ropes, a bit like a really wide lane in a swimming pool. But for sailing's purposes, it's going to be a very narrow lane, and it means that you can't sail all the way out to the corners. And Peter, you'll be very familiar with this from the America's Cup. It's the way that the America's Cup racing was conducted last year with GPS boundaries. Well, here the boundaries are real, and if you sail too far, you don't just get an electronic bleep. You actually tie your foils, your centerboard and rudder up with the rope of the lane ropes. So very different tactical style.
Well, Andy, that's what we have to look forward to tomorrow. But today, it's the third race of 49er racing, and the third and final race of the day.
I think we've got just under 3 minutes to the next start, and I'm feeling a little bit chillier, which tells me that maybe it's getting a little bit windier. It just feels like it's a tad windier than it was. So I fancy that the Kiwis will be pretty hard to beat if the wind is on the increase. And I'm not sure if this includes the discard or not. So we believe that this includes the discard. So as we're looking at it there, Pete Burling and Blair Tuke have regained the overall lead on 47 points, just 5 points ahead of Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen. But look who's in third place, but tied effectively for second. It's the Germans, Eric Heil and Thomas Plussel. So really, really good sailing by them. We haven't spoken an awful lot about them, but here they are. They're just 5 points off the top spot.
And yeah, 5 points between first and third place on our leaderboard as we come in with just a couple minutes to go.
So we haven't clarified yet whether that set of scores that we're looking at there does have the discard. But it's interesting to see that good position in the previous race, the third place by the French, Manu Dienne and Stéphane Christodis, has put them back into fourth overall. Disappointing from a British perspective to see that Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne, a bad race just then. GBR4 just in picture there, down to sixth overall. So looks like the opportunity to win a European title for the British is becoming more and more difficult. John Pink, Stu Bithell had a pretty good race just then. That moves them into ninth overall, the other British team. But 3 Aussies in the top 10. Sorry, 2 Aussies in the top 10.
Careful.
Yes, never.
Pete
never
Burley might have something to say about
Yeah,
that.
Kiwis don't like it, do they? So, about 1 minute 40 to the next start. It's a U flag start. You cannot afford to be over the line in the final minute, otherwise you'll be disqualified. And we see Nathan Outridge and Jensen just then. Australia 5 lining up somewhere near the left-hand end. And just looking out the side of the tent, looking at Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen. They're out to the left-hand side of the course. They're just jibing back, but are they thinking about the port tack start? Still a little bit too early to say, but should be coming up to the 1 minute. That is the 1 minute
That's
there.
the 1 minute there.
France 6 looking high on this side. France 6 thinking about the port tack start. .40 seconds to go, and there are about 5 or 6 boats thinking about the port tack start. Amongst them is Manu Duen and Stefan Christodis. Got one of the best starts in the previous race, finished 3rd in that race by this strategy. But the Kiwis are not going for it. The Kiwis this time are on the right-hand end of the line. So the Kiwis are going for a conventional starboard tack start this time round, and here they go. There's about 8 seconds to go. Will anyone be able to pull off the perfect port tack start? Australia 5. If they've got away with that on a clean start, that's a fantastic start there by Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen. Really unchallenged for winning the pin, going out to the left-hand side. Out there on their own, and this could be a race-winning strategy right here.
Well, we're going to follow this one very closely, Andy, because as you said, they look like they got off the line with absolutely perfect speed, perfect time, perfect placing. We're going to have to see how that translates. But, you know, we saw Pete Burling have a bad race and recover immediately, and it looks like Nathan Outridge is about to do the same thing.
Well, there were a bunch of port tack starters up on the pin end of the line, but Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen were really the only team on starboard tack that had any interest in starting off the left-hand end of the line. The bulk of the fleet, including Pete Burling and Blair Tuke, New Zealand 1, liked the committee boat end of the line. They came off the right-hand end of the line. But it does mean that you're in more traffic. Now, here's the moment of truth for the Australians. How many of these starboard tackers can they get across? It doesn't look like they've managed to get
that might be the reason why nobody wanted that pin end of the line.
Yeah, but will they be able to get through? No, they're going to have to take a lot of transoms here. So it's not worked out as well for them as they might have hoped. And you have to wonder whether they tacked a little bit too early. Maybe they should have carried on into the shore a little bit more, because they've given away valuable distance there.
And including ducking behind the New Zealanders, Peter Burling. So they're already a few boat lengths behind the rival that they're trying to catch.
Poland 42 going through attack there. Austria 84, winners of the first race this morning and winners of the second race just to windward of them. Pete Burling and Blair Tuke just tacking away. Austrians tacking to follow, but being tacked on by France 14. So not a good position there for the Austrians. They're going to be losing ground there if they stay there. It's a horrible place to be in a 49er because tacks are so expensive. Good breeze still.
Well, Andy, as we saw in the last race, it's very close on these first legs, and what we do see though is the boat that's able to get their nose in front and get around that top mark first. Then it just opens everything up, and they're able to extend away. And is that going to be Peter Burling again? Certainly, he's going to be in a strong position. If he's not first around the top mark, he's going to be up with the group that is. But they're looking very, very good right now as well.
A lot of boats still in this at the moment. It's looking fairly even to me across the course in terms of where they could come from. Will the race leader come out of the left or the right? I think it's still too early to say. Austrians tacking away there. Finally had enough of that bad air. Kiwis carrying on out to the right-hand side. I suspect they're going all the way to the ley line.
There are some boats that are also out on the extreme right-hand edge of the racetrack, and it's not clear to me yet if they're going to be able to, when they come back, exactly where they're going to slot in there. That's how far out they are, but that includes the Croatians that we saw doing quite well in a couple of the races yesterday, and also the Italian boat with Angelella.
In that previous shot, the Kiwis looked quite nicely poked out. The Danes going out of picture.
Certainly, as they get up towards this top mark, the fleet's starting to establish a pecking order, but it's not entirely clear yet who's going to be at the lead. As you said, the Kiwis looking nicely with their bow poked out. Nathan Outeridge now as well. He's going to be in the hunt, I think, for the lead. So we're seeing the teams that we think would be strong. They're going to be up there this time. It'll be the first time we actually see them battling against each other today, because they've just been at opposite sides of the race course. First race it was Burling who was struggling. Second race it was Outeridge. In this race, both of them look like they're going to be in the hunt for the lead as we go around the top mark. I'm not quite sure if either of them will hold it, but they're going to be up there.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the head-to-head rivalry between these two sailors, but we haven't actually seen much head-to-head action on the water. It seems to be swings and roundabouts between the Aussies and the Kiwis. It'd be nice to see a proper head-to-head fight on the water between them.
Well, it looks like those boats that were out on the far right, they're not going to be coming in and able to clear ahead of everybody. And now we will have a cross here with Outeridge and Burling, and it's going to be Burling that's ahead.
Polish boat tacking up on the left-hand ley line. Looking like they could be challenging for the top few, but let's see what other boats come in from the other side shortly. New Zealand and Australia almost side by side. It looks like New Zealand might have the edge on Australia.
I think New Zealand has the edge, and I'm not sure that that the Australians are going to lay. In fact, I'm not 100% convinced the New Zealanders are either.
We see it there. We see it there. The New Zealanders and the Aussies both had to tack, so neither are fully up on ley line yet.
So but they're very close.
And the Polish on the left of screen, will they be able to get up inside New Zealand? Surely this is the final approach for New Zealand. Looks like Pete Burling and Blair Tuke are going to be going round in the lead yet again. And it's quite a healthy lead here as well. That's a lead of about 5 or 6 boat lengths on the Australians. So we do at last have our head-to-head battle, but so far it's round 1 to the Kiwis.
Yeah, advantage New Zealand over Australia. They've got that overall lead, and now they've got the race lead as well. But those are our first 2 boats around. So the first time we've seen them in a few days where they've been head-to-head and at the head of the fleet, Andy.
So can the Aussies take it to the Kiwis? They're both very fast downwind. It's their strong suit. So will the Aussies be able to get back into the Kiwis in any way at all? Just see in front of picture there the Red Bull New Zealand 1. That's the New Zealand 1. The girls, Alex Maloney and Molly Meach, looking to see if they can do a similar job on the women's fleet as Pete Burling and Blair Tuke are on the men's fleet. Squeezing round there are the Germans. Eric Plussel and Thomas Hull just about round, but look at the traffic. So congested in the middle of the pack. And this is where boat handling errors creep in. It's also where you lose valuable ground to the leaders, and we already know that the Aussies and the Kiwis are incredibly quick downwind. So there go Pete Burling and Blair Tuke into their jibe.
Well, you're looking at the overall series leaders and the race leaders. This is the 3rd of 3 races this morning in the 49er class. And coming up right afterwards, we're going to have 49er FX racing. This is day 2 of Gold Fleet racing here at the European Championships. And we've seen a pretty powerful display over the last 2 days by this New Zealand crew. They've won 4 of the last 5 races. They're looking to make it 5 of 6. And as you would expect with those kind of results over the last couple of days, they are at the head of the leaderboard.
So right at the back of the boat already. Sometimes I think the bow looks a little bit too high, but who can fault their sailing downwind? They're so fast downwind. They just seem to get the 49er speedboating downwind, but at the moment it looks like the Aussies might have a little bit of pace on them. Aussies going into a jibe, almost a simultaneous jibe there. The Aussies look like they might have made a bit of ground back on the Kiwis. Hard to tell from this perspective.
Yeah, if they have, they've made up a very small amount, Andy. I think it's still advantage New Zealand here.
Very good breeze on the race course, but it is streaky. Boats flying down towards the leeward gate. Which one will they choose? At the moment, the Kiwis look like they're low for the left-hand mark. It looks like it might have to be the right-hand mark. Dropping the Jenica and jibing round, going out to sea. What will the Aussies do? I think they'll have to do the same thing. It's just too far to go to the other mark. The Brits go round the other mark, Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne, and I think the Kiwis and the Aussies were a little bit too low to really give themselves a choice. And I think they also, possibly the mark they went around was a little bit further away. So I think this opens the door to the British and the French, who are going round the opposite mark. GBR 4 and France 14, I think, might be back in the hunt and could spoil the Antipodean party. We'll have to see when we see the first cross up this second beat.
Well, Andy, we will keep our eye on that, because certainly that would be interesting. And you know, Dylan Fletcher could certainly use a good result to solidify his chance at a podium finish overall here. Remember, there are 3 more races to go in this championship. It'll be the theater style racing, and that takes place tomorrow on Sunday here in Helsinki. So just 3 more races left after this last race of the day for the 49er class.
The Germans, Eric Harlan Thomas Plussel, one of the first boats to go out to the right-hand side as well, following the Aussies and the Kiwis out to that side. So the Germans consolidating a good overall position. And John Pink and Stu Bithell, GBR 10, also doing well in this race. They did well in the previous race. France 3, a little bit further back in the pack. Manu Duyen, Stefan Christidis, they're pretty much in the middle of this one. So not so good from them. And Jonas Worra, Anders Thompson, the Danish, the 2008 Olympic champion, not doing so well here. Not having a great day of it at all, actually. I wonder if they are going to be one of the casualties who don't make it through to the final 10. Looking there at Australia 20, Steve Thomas and Sam Phillips sailing out to the left-hand side. Any opportunity for top 10, I'm pretty sure, has slipped away for them. So some of these boats will be very aware of how on the cusp they are of making the final 10.
I think one of the ones you were speaking about was the British team of John Pink. They came into today 13th, but they've had a couple of solid results here. So
I think they're securely inside the top 10 now. Without looking at the scores, I would say that they are a banker for going through to the final.
Andy, you were talking about that gate rounding and how Dylan Fletcher of Great Britain and the French boat as well, that they might have made a gain by going inshore on the left, and it looks like that's the case. I don't know if they've made enough to take on Pete Burling, but they're certainly making a push towards Nathan Outeridge in second place.
Well, we're looking at Pete Burling and Blair Tuke there, and I'm surprised how bouncy it is out there. The bow is really jumping up and down through these waves. But look how beautifully they're sailing that boat. Really flat down on their trapezes. If there was any change in the breeze, it gives them very little time to respond because they're already so close to the water. So very easy to end up being teabagged. That's the technical term for when you get dunked in the water to windward. It is in Britain anyway, of course. Sweden and could be Italy following the Kiwis up. The Kiwis have just tacked back onto starboard tack. So now's the moment of truth. Are they still in the lead, or did the British and the French manage to make any kind of inroads going round the other mark at the bottom of this course?
And the Kiwis with that tack, I think they'll be trying to call a ley line from a long way out. I don't know if they'll get it quite right. They might need another couple of tacks, but they're very close to that starboard tack ley line, if not on it.
The nice thing about the 49er is if you overstand it a little bit, you get rewarded with extra boat speed by bearing away a bit and sailing on a tight reach. So it's not disastrous if you overcook a ley line. Sometimes it's better to do that than undertack it and give yourself 2 more tacks to do.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I haven't seen too many. I've seen a lot of people come up short on these ley lines.
Yeah, that is quite surprising, really. I mean, I guess the thing is that the earlier you hit the ley line, the less opportunity to take advantage of any changes in the wind.
Yeah, and I think we might have a new leader here in this race, Andy. I think the Kiwis have had the British boat, Dylan Fletcher, just cross in front of them.
Well, I put it down to going around the wrong mark at the bottom, and they didn't give themselves any choice because they misjudged how much breeze there were. And I wonder if the Kiwis and the Aussies got a little bit too caught up with each other down the previous run. They started to think of it in terms of being a match race and didn't give enough respect to the British and the French, who were just behind. They sailed too far, and they had a choice of 2 gates, but they effectively removed that choice by sailing beyond the ley line for the left-hand mark. They could only go around the right-hand mark out to sea. And if we find that the British and the French have managed to get back into the Kiwis and the Aussies, I think it comes back to the wrong choice of gate around the bottom mark.
Well, the interesting thing, we're looking at the French boat come screaming in towards this mark. Ahead of them is Britain's Dylan Fletcher. Just behind them in frame now is the Australians' Nathan Outeridge. And we're going to see New Zealand, we're going to see the Kiwis needing to do a double tack. And have they got in just ahead of time? I think they may have just squeezed around the mark. Just behind the British boat. So it is Dylan Fletcher leading around. New Zealanders in 2nd place. 3rd is France. And right hot on their heels is the Australian boat of Nathan Outeridge in 4th place. And that's going to be a battle all the way down to the finishing line now.
So who would have thought? Who would have thought that the Aussies and the Kiwis would yield like that?
Or am I calling the finishing line early? Do we have another lap to go?
Well, I wonder about that. It seems a little bit early for the finish to be coming up now.
I think we're on lap 2 of 3.
But I'm really surprised by that. I think that was a schoolboy error by the Aussies and the Kiwis on the previous run. I just think they got too caught up with their personal match race. But great news for the British. Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne haven't had a great day so far. Dropped back to about 6th overall, having got into the day, and 3rd overall. So now's an opportunity for them to get back in and make some valuable points.
And Andy, we saw him do this yesterday consistently, and that's an early jibe, if not a jibe set by Nathan Outeridge. So he came back towards the middle, but then interestingly, he's jibed back again to head out to where his competition is. So 2 quick maneuvers there by Nathan Outeridge and Ian Jensen. And as he goes back, you can see the lead's really consolidated for both the British and New Zealand boat over Australia. But it looks like that those 2 quick jibes have put Outeridge in front of the French team now.
So here's an interesting opportunity for the British to see if they can match Kiwi boat speed downwind, because we've seen the Kiwis so fast downwind, and the Brits need to check in against these guys and know how their boat speed relates. It's about the European Championships, but it's also about knowing where you stand against your opposition. The Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere don't meet that often on the racing circuit, so it's always good to check in and see how you're doing. And at the moment, it looks like the Brits have the measure of the Kiwis down this run.
Yeah, they're doing a very nice job here, Andy, and there's still a little ways to go, but to this point, it looks like they're able to fend them off.
And the positioning of the Brits, it's very good again. They've given themselves the choice of either mark, and we saw that they profited from going around the inshore mark, but where they've jibed suggests No, they are going to go around the same mark as before. So they're going to go back inshore again, which is how they made their gains on the previous beat. And this time, the Kiwis are going to follow them round.
So they've got about a 10-second lead there, Andy. But you know, it's a comfortable lead, but I don't think they'll be resting on their laurels by any stretch of the imagination. And both of those teams have stretched out a little bit over Nathan Outeridge and certainly the French boat that's chasing as well.
Nathan Outeridge and Ian Jensen going round the same mark in third place. They've stretched away from the French, so they're solidly in third place, but there's quite a lot for the Australians to do if they're going to get back in against the Kiwis and the Brits, with the Brits still leading. The French go round the same left-hand mark. No one has gone out to sea yet. We've got an Italian boat coming down now. Italy 23 also going around the left-hand mark. And it tells you that there is quite a lot of bias on this leeward gate, and this is the reason why the Kiwis and the Aussies gave away their first and second places on the previous leg, because it's an unbalanced gate, and really there's only one sensible choice unless you're in traffic, and that's to go around the left-hand mark.
Well, it looks like their setup and their approach last time down was just completely wrong to make that an option, but it was a costly mistake as they gave up the lead. And the chase is on now. Dylan Fletcher, the British helmsman, he is leading this race, but breathing down his neck is Pete Burling. And, well, Burling has won so many of the last few races here. He's put on such a great performance, and he'll be keen to try and make another win here if he can make the pass.
Well, at last we see another boat go round the right-hand mark. It's the French, France 3. They're the first to go round, but they must be outside of the top 10. So really, the front pack, they all want to go left.
This is the final upwind leg of our third race today in the 49er class. And we'll be bringing you 3 more races in this class tomorrow. It'll be the theater style racing, just the top 10 advancing to that stage of the competition. And so position's really important here at the head of the fleet. Well, you want to have as many points in your pocket as you can so that you're in good position tomorrow. And certainly in this race, it's all about being in that top 10, making sure you qualify for the theater racing.
Critical moments now for some of these teams looking to make those top 10 places, but the Kiwis and the Aussies will be thinking about their relative positions and how they go in to the 3 races tomorrow relating to each other. They're going to be pretty close on points. We're in for an exciting battle tomorrow, and let's not discount some of the other teams. The Germans are still going to be right in there, and the French and possibly even the Brits that are leading this race at the moment.
Yeah, and Andy, of course, with those short races tomorrow, the start's so important. It'll be a little bit easier. There's only 10 boats on the start line, but getting off that line well and getting a good start, getting your nose in front, absolutely critical when the race is only about 10 minutes long.
Yeah, and the tactics are really quite different with the lane boundaries as well, because you don't have as much of a good run off the pin end on starboard tack. So the traditional pin end starboard tack start that normally works so well in the 49er, you run out of runway very quickly. So there are different approaches that you need to take. And I remember at last year's European Championships, it was the Portuguese that are in this race at the moment, George Lima and Jose Costa, seem to have the measure of getting off the start line. They were coming off the committee boat end of the line and managing to hold a high lane and pretty much control all of the fleet to the left of them. And they didn't manage to convert that into race wins all the way around the racetrack, but in terms of windward mark positions, they did very well, and that put them in 6th overall in the Europeans last year, which is a good score for the Portuguese.
And Andy, we've just had a cross further up the racetrack, and I think it was Peter Burling on starboard crossing just ahead of Dylan Fletcher, the British boat needing to duck behind there. So they switched sides on the racetrack, but they've also switched positions in the lead with the New Zealand team, Peter Burling, just eking out the tiniest of leads here as we approach that top mark. Still a few more tacks left. Nobody's on ley line yet.
Well, can the Brits win back that lead off the Kiwis? The Kiwis, once they get their nose ahead, tend to stay ahead, but they've already given up the lead once in this race. They've made a tactical mistake earlier on in the race, overstanding the ley line on the first run down to the gate. But now that they are vying for the lead again with the British, will the Kiwis give it up again? Will the Brits be able to get back on level terms and get ahead again?
Yeah, so I mean, I think what's happened here, the reason they would have ducked, they want to go out to the starboard tack ley line, the British team. So they'll be approaching the mark with starboard tack. They'll have rights. But the question is whether the Kiwis are going to be able to just tack underneath them and squeeze their way inside at the mark. We'll find that out very shortly.
We see GBR4 sailing across on starboard tack. And we see how close it is between these two boats, but it looks like they are on final approach for the windward mark, and Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne remain in the lead and still hold a slender lead over the Kiwis. They managed to hold them off on the previous run, but this time the Kiwis are going to make life hard for them because they go into a jibe set and an immediate split develops. So this gives the Brits something to think about. They respond with a defensive move, but looking at that line of dark water above the Kiwis, you wonder if the Kiwis are onto this new breeze a little bit earlier than the Brits, and will that allow the Kiwis to get over the top of the British?
Yeah, it looks like this was the plan all the way along, Andy, that they saw that patch of breeze and decided if an early a jibe set would just help them out enough. And certainly they powered up very quickly out of that jibe too.
Yeah, they did, and it's a real difficult one to know how to lead when we've got the reigning world champions breathing down your necks. You know that they're fast downwind. What do? They probably had half a mind to do the jibe set themselves, the British. We'll have to see. I mean, the Kiwis have got to still get round the outside and in front of them, and when they come back onto to their jibe, the Brits should still be in a position to attack the Kiwis.
Yeah, I think you're right. The Kiwis, they just got that puff of breeze, and it's allowed them to sail a little bit lower. And I'm not sure if they're all the way around yet, but they've certainly made some inroads here.
But both boats now are in very, very strong winds. And in fact, you look at the boat in the other race, the Finnish boat behind, and they're really, really
different.
deep.
Completely different direction, isn't it?
It is. So there's some big gusts out there, and this is maybe the reason why the Aussies and the Kiwis missed their ley line the first time down, because a small pressure change in the 49er could suddenly send the boat spearing off down 20 degrees lower, 30 degrees sometimes lower than where you were before.
I think this is shaping up to be a heck of a finish between the New Zealanders and the British boat, Burling and Dylan Fletcher here. It's really close, but the Kiwis maybe just have a little advantage here.
Nice gust there. You just see the boat lean over and the Brits respond, so they're in a stronger gust again. And we don't have the perspective on the Kiwis there yet to see how the Kiwis are going relative to the Brits. The Brits are still above the ley line for the finish, so I think they've still got 2 more jibes to do. The Kiwis have already... it could be that the Kiwis have somehow made a move through the Brits here.
I think they have, Andy. I think they've just been sailing a little bit deeper all the way through.
And how they've managed that, I don't know, because they've converted a loss of about 3 boat lengths to a gain of about 4 or 5 boat lengths, and that must be soul destroying for the British, because they pretty much sailed the same way down this run. There really wasn't much to choose.
It was just that first jibe and that first puff, and they were just able to sail so much lower coming out of that windward mark.
So they're just about to cross the line, and when I say they, I mean the Kiwis. New Zealand won. Pete Burling and Blair Tuke win their second race of the day. And
5 out of 6 now, I think, Andy.
It is absolutely 5 out of 6 in the Gold Fleet finals.
So remember, that's 5 out of 6 against the best of the best, because we're already sailing with the cream of the crop here. The top 26 boats yesterday, 1 more added to the fleet today, the top 27. And in that, advanced category of a fleet, Andy, we've got Peter Burling and Blair Tuke winning 5 out of 6 races. Just an incredible performance.
Incredible by them. A bit disappointing that it was only a second place for Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syme, but still a useful second place. Outridge was in third across the finish line. And he wasn't far behind Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syme as they crossed. So at least the British managed to hold on to second place, but the Aussies were in third in that race.
And then we've got the French coming up in 4th place, 4th across the line, Andy.
And another British crew, John Pink and Stu Bithell, had another good race there. So they're safely inside the top 10. They started the day in 11th. So they're one of those teams that have managed to get onto the right side of this final 10 that will go through to the theatre style racing tomorrow.
And if you're looking for the results, want to see if your favorite team has made it into the top 10, just log on to 49er.org and the results will be up there in just a few minutes after the rest of the fleet has finished.
Yesterday we saw Pete Burling and Blair Tuke make a race for the shore. For them the race wasn't complete until they got the boat back on the trolley, and we had Blair Tuke sitting in the studio before half the fleet had even finished in the TV studio for an interview with me yesterday. This time they're sitting out there for a little bit longer. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe to pass on some knowledge to the coach, who will relay that on to Alex Maloney and Molly Meach, who are not far off pole position for the Kiwis in the women's FX racing that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on.
Well, that's right, and that's the next racing coming up after this. So we've had our 3 races in the 49er class, and the 49er FX, well, they're due up in just a few moments' time. But we'll just get ourselves through the end of this race, and then we'll take a short break and come back with 49er FX racing in just a few minutes here at the European Championships here in Helsinki, Finland. Well, Andy, a very interesting day today. We saw just a dismal race by the Kiwis initially, and then we had them come back with a couple of wins. We've had Nathan Outridge saying I think he thinks he's sitting in second place overall, and certainly they've had a good day today with one bad race in the middle, sandwiched between another pair of top 5 results. And so the consistency that's been shown by both Peter Burling and then just behind him Nathan Outridge, I think that's as impressive as the individual results. On Burling's side, the consistencies with race wins, which you can't argue with there. And on Outridge, he's just a shade back with top 5 results and just a string of top 5 results.
And we saw our first real head-to-head battle between them in that final race. They were first and second round the top mark, and who'd have thought that it would have been anything other than that by the end. But they both made that mistake in the final race. They are fallible. They are prone to making mistakes. Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syme had their moments, but they just couldn't hold off the charge of the Kiwis, and yet they did hold off the Aussies. So it seems to me that the New Zealanders have that slight edge that even Nathan Outridge and Ian Jensen can't match.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. If they held off the Aussies, it was just barely at that finish line. As Outridge made a huge gain on that run as well. So very close finish there too. But it's an important results leading into tomorrow at the head of the fleet. But really, the critical time is for the boats a little bit further down, not at the top of the fleet, but the ones just a little bit further back.
Yeah, that's right, and we will get back to you a little bit later on when we fully know who's through to the top 10. It's too early to call at the moment. But yeah, tense moments for those boats that are sitting around the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th mark.
Well, that's right, and certainly we've got a lot of boats that are in the mix for that. You want to qualify for the top 10 because one of the important things in this class, that top 10 theater style racing, it's here to stay in the 49er class. If you don't make it into that top 10, you don't get to practice that style of racing.
No, that's right. It's really critical whenever you can to practice the theatre style. It's a very unique style of racing with the lane rope boundaries, and so any opportunity you've got to put it to the test before Rio 2016, before the Olympic Games, you'd take that any time.
Well, Andy, I think we're going to go for a moment now. We've got Nathan Outridge fresh off the water who's going to come and chat to us for just a moment, and we'll be able to find out, well, did he manage to pip the Brits for second place or not? That might be the first question. And then let's see and find out how he feels about his day. Right, Nathan. Well, thanks for joining us so quickly off the water. I guess we did want to find out in this race. It looked like a very close finish. Were you able to just squeak into second place there or not?
Yeah, I think we just got across Dylan and Alan. They missed a jibe set at the top, and we followed Pete and Blair around. And there was just that good slice of breeze the whole way down the outside of the course, and we figured we had nothing to lose, so we went for it and just scraped in between the two of them.
And so tell us a little bit about your day. You bookended a couple of good results with one not so good in the middle there.
Yeah, it was really tricky out there today. It was a lot lighter than yesterday. So yesterday the lulls were still windy enough to keep going and not lose any distance, whereas today, in that second race, we just didn't get a lane on port going up the first beat and got stuck out on the left, and I think we were last for the first lap, and we just kept chipping away. It was a bit disappointing when they shortened the course because it gave us less time to catch up, but that happens in Gold Fleet racing. You saw Pete have a bad one in the first race, and I think Dylan and Alan were with us in that middle race, so it was really tricky and tough, and we were really happy to bounce back well in the third race.
We've been talking a lot about the head-to-head between you and the Kiwis, but we didn't really see a head-to-head until the final race today, first and second round, that top mark. And I just wondered, did you get a little bit carried away with the personal match race and sort of overlook the ley line for the other mark? Because you sort of gave it back to the British and the French who went round the other mark. Yeah,
I was sort of kicking myself with that one because yesterday we were really good at getting the gate, ley lines perfect, and today in that one I just miscalculated the ley line and thought, oh well, it's lighter today, so you're better off to come in hot. And it was a bit windier in that last race, and that caught us out. In the lighter stuff, you can sail 10 degrees higher and just go quicker, but as soon as it's windy, you just can't point any higher. And I was really looking for that right-hand gate coming into the bottom mark, and when we got the ley line wrong, we had to follow Pete and Blair around, and then we had all the traffic of the downwind boats, so we sort of threw it away there, but happy to get back into it in the end.
All right, and tomorrow, Nathan, we switch style of racing again. It's the top 10. It's this theater style racing, really short. What are the important aspects about that style of racing?
I think with that racing, it's all about nailing the starts. Because by the time you get to the boundary, if you've got that small little lead over the other boats, you'll get that cross that you need, and then once you're in front, you can sail quite clean. But if you don't get off the line very well, it's just fighting with all the other boats from then. And we got a bit of practice in that in the middle race today, fighting with all the guys in the middle of the pack. So hopefully that helps us for tomorrow.
All right, thanks. Well, that's Nathan Outteridge. They sit in second place overall on their leaderboard today after 3 good races today, and the consistency shown by Outteridge and Jensen, a string of top 5 finishes, and maybe just slightly behind the string of race wins by our overall leaders, Pete Burling and Blair Tuke.
Yeah, 5 out of 6 in Gold Fleet final racing. I don't know if that's happened before. It's got to be one of the most dominant performances that we've seen at this level. And it does seem that as the breeze picks up, the Kiwis have a little bit of an edge. And if we're in for more breeze tomorrow, I don't know what the forecast is at the moment, but if we're in for strong breeze tomorrow, again, you would expect the Kiwis to do very well in that.
Well, the Kiwis really the head of the fleet, the class of the fleet right now, and Outteridge and Jensen with their work cut out for them if they're going to make up the deficit tomorrow. We have 3 races on top tomorrow. They're going to be short, they're going to be sharp, they're going to be absolutely exciting, and you certainly won't want to miss that. That'll be in the 49er and the 49er FX class, and Andy, the 49er FX, we're going to have some racing there in just a few minutes.
Yeah, we are. And again, there's a lot of Kiwi focus there. We got, again, reigning world champions from New Zealand. They've got the double at the moment from last year in Marseille at the World Championships. So Alex Maloney and Molly Meach, they're just a point off first place. But first place sits with the Danes. It's Ida Marie Nielsen and Marie Olsen, who are the reigning European champions. They won the first ever 49er FX European Championship about a year ago in Aarhus in Denmark, and they're no slouches, so we're going to see a good battle there. We also expect to see sailors like the Brazilians, Martina Grael and Kahena Kunze. They didn't have a great day yesterday in the yellow jersey. They slipped a few points, but the Brazilians, you can never count them out. They've won at least 3 major regattas already this season in 2014.
Well, that racing is coming up, the 49er FX class. If you want to check the results in the 49er class, please make sure you take a look on the website, 49er.org, and under the European Championships, you'll be able to see what the results look like. And it looks like we've got our overall series leader coming in just now, Peter Burling. And Peter, welcome. Just take a seat. You can see where Nathan was sitting a minute ago, the wetsuit on the couch. And so we talked to Nathan. He's had a string of really consistent top 5 finishes. With you, you've even trumped that. You've got 5 out of 6 race wins now in a gold fleet. That's pretty impressive. Pete, how do you account for that? What are you guys doing so well right now?
Yeah, I think we obviously had a pretty tough race in that first race today, and probably kind of gave us a bit of a kick to get back at the right thing for those last couple. But yeah, we've just been getting really good lanes up the first beat, which has made life really easy, to be honest. We've kind of been doing a lot of those Port-Tax starts you've probably seen, and yeah, just managing to get the boat in a really good lane early on in the beat, and then it's just kind of been almost easy-ish from there.
There was one race, I think it was the second race today. It looked like you were aiming for the pin end on starboard, and maybe you misjudged it and ended up having to do a sort of a last-minute port-tack start. That was my interpretation. Was that fair, or tell us what was going through your mind?
No, it was always the plan to do the port-tack start. We kind of just decided we wanted to be the furthest one left of the port-tack starters, so we just waited on starboard for quite a long time for everyone else to go, and then flopped over and went off. So no, it was definitely always the plan on that one to be a port-tack starter. We definitely wouldn't have made the pin from where we were sitting on starboard, but we're just kind of just waiting on starboard. It's a lot easier just to wait on starboard and hang out, and then flop over late and go.
It looked like you were going to have to play second fiddle to France 3, though, Manu Dien. It looked like you were going to have to follow him through, and then you found your way over the top of maybe one starboard tacker that he didn't. Looks like a pretty high-risk strategy, that port-tack start.
Yeah, I think the good thing about it is you can be literally straight behind someone, but there's always a starboard tacker that they're going to have to dip soon anyway. So, yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's almost like a rabbit start, you know, where everyone just has to dip the last starboard tacker and go. So in a standard port-tack start, it's effectively just a rabbit start, and you're all just in a line going. So even if you wait for 20 or 20 seconds or something at the pin, it doesn't really matter. You all end up in the same bit of water a few seconds later anyway.
With the lane ropes tomorrow for the final 10 in the theatre style racing, are we going to see even more port-tack starting?
Oh, we have to just see how it is, to be honest. Today, obviously, we did a lot of port-tack starting. The pin was probably a little favoured in a couple of the races, and yesterday the pin was a long way up, so that was making the port-tack starts a really, really biased option. But yeah, tomorrow we'll just have to take it as it comes. We've done a fair few lane theatre style races in the last kind of few months, and yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's good fun.
So, Peter, you go into this with the overall lead. There's 3 races tomorrow, only the top 10 boats. How much do you play the leaderboard, and how much are you just out to win every race?
I'm not really sure how the leaderboard's stacking up behind Nathan Goops, to be honest. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see tonight after the protests and stuff go through and all those, everything goes through, and then just work out the points there. The British are back in third. I assume they're still third, and obviously if us and Nathan are a long way out, we'll be paying a little bit more attention to them. But you know, there's still plenty of other boats out there that can annoy you.
Great, thank you. Well, that's Peter Burling, him and his crew, Blair Tuke. They are your overall leaders today. As we'll just switch back to another camera there. But interesting to hear him say it was a planned start, the one that we weren't 100% sure of what was going on there, but it looks like they were at least. They had a plan, they executed it well, and it certainly paid off for them.
Fair play, yeah. I mean, it all looked a bit last minute to me, but it's interesting that was all fully in the game plan. That was the plan A after all. And he said it only takes one starboard tacker for one of the other port-tack starters that you're trying to sail against to duck, and then you can find your own way through. So maybe it's not as high risk as it appears to be. It's becoming more and more popular because we just didn't see that much port-tack starting a few years back in the 49er.
Yeah, well, certainly it's a strategy that's paying off for them, and they see it seems to be one that they've practiced, they've discussed. It's one that they want, and they're really executing it just about flawlessly. So that is the end of the 49er coverage, 49er FX coverage coming up. And again, if you want to find the results from the 49er coverage, do make sure that you check in on 49er.org, and the results will be posted there in just a moment or two. And we're going to be coming up with the 49er FX. We're going to need to change feeds, so we're going to sign off from the 49er class racing just now. We'll be back in just a few minutes with 49er FX racing here at the European Championships in Helsinki, Finland.